This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
3 minutes after 10 is the time. A very good morning indeed to you. What if it just is? What if it just is? It's just a thing that is happening. There are questions to ask about why and what we should be doing about it, but is it helpful to ask a question about whether it is really happening? Because what if it just is? Would we ever satisfactorily establish that it is just happening in the minds of the people who will always be convinced that it isn't? I speak of Wes Streeting's decision to launch an independent review into rising demand for mental health, ADHD and autism services in England. And it will look at both whether there is evidence of overdiagnosis and what gaps in support exist. And that speaks directly to the question that I just asked you. What if it just is? What if there is no overdiagnosis, or where there is so little overdiagnosis that it makes no difference whatsoever to the overall numbers? Because it speaks so directly to the narrative of lies, the narrative of lead swinging, the narrative of faking it or pretending or exaggerating in pursuit of some often unspecified goal, usually benefits related, usually welfare related, that there's always a danger with this stuff that it will do more harm than good. You know, there is no smoke without fire. Why on earth would you have an investigation into overdiagnosis if there were no overdiagnosis? But, you know, I might be sounding a bit naive to you, a bit too trusting. I often think that we run very real risks in our society, and probably all societies that are free, of taking extreme examples and promoting or pretending that they are representative of the whole. You know what I mean. You find one bad apple and you use that bad apple to malign and denigrate the entire barrel. I mean, it is a good business model in some senses. It's very effective politically for populists and bigots and both. You find one bad apple and you use that bad apple to malign an entire barrel. It never happens to majorities in societies. You will never see a crime being committed, for example, by a middle-aged, middle-class white man and wake up the next morning as a middle-aged, middle-class white man thinking, oh no, here we go again. I don't know that we can stress this point enough, actually. As a middle-aged, middle-class white man, or any class at all, just as a white British man in this country, you are never going to wake up in the morning, hear the news headlines and think, oh no, my life's going to get harder today because I share characteristics and attributes with that person. If you're from an ethnic minority, you know what that feels like. If you're Muslim, you know what that feels like. If you're Jewish, you know what that feels like historically and currently. But if you are a white, British, Anglo-Saxon, I don't know what phrase you want to use, but somebody who is not a member of any minority, because of course if you're gay, you may get caught up in some of this. Different levels for different groups. But if you are of the majority, the homogenous majority, you will never know what that feels like. And listen, I'm not particularly on my high horse yet this morning. Note the yet, please. I'm not in my pulpit yet. I'm just pointing it out because some people still pretend not to understand what phrases like white privilege mean. You will never know what it's like to hear about a terror attack or a terrible crime being committed by somebody with whom you share attributes and feel fear if the attributes you currently have are essentially part of the homogenous majority. So what is it about you that we should be having evidence or an inquiry about overdiagnosis of? What is it about you that Wes Streeting thinks we should treat with suspicion? I don't know. But it ain't going to be something that the homogenous majority of the population have. You can be sure of this. Okay, so park that, semicolon. No, full stop, new paragraph. But what if there is an epidemic of overdiagnosis? Then it is in all our interests to address it. I don't think there's anything controversial about identifying the other area of this inquiry where people with health problems, mental health problems, or ADHD or autism have been let down. The system has not been able to keep up with the pace of change, with the extreme increase in diagnoses. Some of the waiting lists are absolutely unbearable. And of course, in the fourth or fifth paragraph of whatever story you are reading with regard to this inquiry launched by Wes Streeting, you will read that it comes as ministers seek to tackle a growing welfare bill. So, full stop, new paragraph, there goes the alarm bell again. You are approaching these diagnoses with a presumption, I think, of suspicion. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be mooting the possibility of overdiagnosis. So, listen, the reason I'm pointing this out to you, and I apologise if it didn't need pointing out, but sometimes I need to get my own thoughts in order before I start asking you what yours are. The reason I'm pointing this out to you is that it is one of those stories where there are cases, there are opposing cases to be made, but somewhere in between those opposing cases, in the hinterland, tone becomes crucially important. So are we overdiagnosing? Who is going to be able to answer that question except anecdotally? And by anecdotally, I mean about other people. Two types of anecdote. There's a story you tell me about yourself, about your authentic self. And then there's a story you tell me about someone else who's not you. If you were to break those down, the authentic stories would never really speak to overdiagnosis. You're unlikely, although you are, of course, welcome to, you are unlikely to ring me and say, I am swinging the lead, James, I am having a laugh, I am living the life of Riley, pretending to have this, that and the other, and they've given me a free car. Of course, that could never happen in quite the extreme terms that I've just described, and B, it would be a very odd thing to cough to live on national radio. The authentic experience will be my life has been utterly transformed for the better by a diagnosis. And it's clear to me, you would say, that we have been languishing in ignorance for decades, for generations, because when my boy got his diagnosis, I realised that I had been living with the burdens he carried for my entire life. And only now are they being lightened by receiving a similar diagnosis. So what if it just is? What if it just is? What if we have been going about our lives without knowing that our neurodiversity was something that could be addressed and our life could therefore be improved? I took myself a little bit by surprise last time we addressed this issue by how emotional I found myself getting when I recalled being naughty as a child. And it's a weird word, naughty. It's actually quite a horrible burden to carry. What you do if you're labelled naughty at quite a young age is accommodate it, possibly even pretend that you celebrate it. I'm the naughty child. I am the rebel. I am the naughty child. I am the maverick. But it's a horrible position. The younger you are, the more horrible it actually is, the more cognitive dissonance you need to pretend that it's not a horrible thing that you're doing. Because what if naughtiness, as we call it, what if naughtiness is not a lifestyle choice? Think back to your school days now, right? Think of the, quotes, naughtiest, end quotes, child in your class. Do you reckon they chose to be that way? Do you reckon they woke up every morning and thought, I'm going to get thrown out of class today because I love it? I'm going to get into trouble today. I'm going to get into a fight today. I'm going to get lamped by a teacher today. Do you reckon? Honestly, hand on heart, some maybe, but I bet you there's stuff going on at home. Even if they don't have any neurodiversity, there's a heck of a lot of stuff going on at home that might explain their behaviour in school. But think back, I reckon you can name them now. The naughtiest boys, the naughtiest girls in your class. If you were at school in Chaddesley Corbett between 1979 and 1984, you might be thinking of me at this point. We had a very helpful metric to work out who the naughtiest boys were. We got beaten the most by the grown man who was our headmaster. Do you reckon we wanted that or liked that? You go into the room and get battered formally by a 6'4" man and then say, thank you, sir, on your way out of the room. because we're naughty, because we chose to be naughty. We got into trouble because we went through a rational set of choices and decisions and opted to go that way. And of course, most of us in the 1970s and the 1980s had not had any diagnoses at all. We'd never heard of ADHD. We didn't know what it was. And now I want you to think about, what word can I use here? Because I don't want to suggest an adjective, because they are all unpleasant and unkind. The child in your class who you know now had autism, but you wouldn't have known the word at the time. There was a lovely boy in the year below me during the period that I've just described about who was obsessed with the washing machines. We had a little laundry. It was a boarding school, so we had a little laundry in the school grounds, and every morning break he would go there and just sit and watch the washing machines. I hope he didn't get bullied, but he certainly got teased, and who knows where the difference is between those two things. But do you see what I mean? What word do you use to describe that boy? You know what words you would have used at the time. You know what words you would have applied to him at the time. Not even unkindly necessarily, but because our vocabularies didn't stretch to a more sophisticated analysis. But you would call him, and forgive me, I'm now going to say some of the words that you might have reached for, odd, or strange, or weird, or worse. So think of the naughtiest child in your class, and think of the oddest child, or the least regimented, the strangest. I don't like those words. I want better words, but I'm working with them now. And tell me whether or not they were choosing to be in the categories that we're now describing. And I think that's a really helpful way into understanding what has happened in our society subsequently. I really do. And it's not going to just be the stuff that Streeting is looking at. Dyspraxia is a fascinating thing. I discovered it on this programme. Dyspraxia I'd never heard of. Dyslexia was relatively new when I was at school, but dyspraxia, and I'll probably get it a little bit wrong, but it is essentially a sort of physical manifestation of dyslexia, what you might call a clumsiness. So now think of the clumsiest child in your class at school. There's 3 children there now. You've got the clumsiest, you've got the most eccentric. That's a nice word to use, perhaps, a better word to use, the most eccentric. And you've got the naughtiest. Now, what do you reckon? Do you reckon they were all waking up every morning and saying, right, I'm going to knock over the ink pot today. I'm very old. Not quite as old as my Spotify profile would suggest, my Spotify Wrapped profile would suggest, but, you know, I'm going to fall over the desk today. I'm going to score an own goal. I'm going to trip over my own shoelace. Do you think they woke up in the morning and said that they were going to do that? I don't know what the phoning is this morning because I can't get past the what if it is just real. What if there is no overdiagnosis? What if we're just waking up to the tapestry of humanity in ways that previous generations were not alive to, were not awake to? So that those 3 children, unless they were lucky enough to go to a school like mine, an expensive school, a school where one-on-one care was normal and commonplace, a school where teachers would be looking out, not so much with the naughty kids, although even they found champions and heroes and heroines, but certainly for the, quotes, eccentric, end quotes, kids, or the clumsy kids, there'd be paths that were found for them to flourish and to thrive. At both of my schools, that would happen. My big school, my public school, made a great play, partly because of its Catholic ethos, its Christian ethos, made a great play of finding something that everybody was good at, finding something that everybody could flourish at. Everybody had a thing that they were good at. How likely was that to happen in your school? How likely was that to happen to you? The tapestry of humanity is rich and varied, and we're only now beginning to discover just how many different coloured threads there are, weaving us all together. And Wes Streeting wants to have an inquiry into whether or not we're recognising too many different coloured threads, whether or not we should all try a little bit harder to be monochrome, whether or not we should be perfectly happy with black and white blankets instead of multicoloured ones, amazing technicoloured dream coats in one corner and sepia-tinted Victorian vistas in the other. I don't know. I don't even know where all this is coming from, to be honest with you. But I hate this story, and I'm surprised how much it troubles me. Because overdiagnosis denies the reality of all the children we've just talked about. Just because we didn't have a name for it when we were kids doesn't mean it's not real. So, this might not work, all right? But I'm in one of those moods. If it doesn't work, I'll draw a line under it at 10:30 and we'll start the same conversation in a different way. I'll come up with a more traditional question. But all I've got for you at 18 minutes past 10 this morning is this. What if it's just real? So, come to me with your story of the reality of this situation. Tell me how you feel about the words overdiagnosis, about the words inquiry, an inquiry born of suspicion. It will look at both whether there is evidence of overdiagnosis and what gaps in support exist. Why not just start with the gaps? Instead of allowing people of all political persuasions, I was naively of the view once that it would just be right-wingers who hate the idea of spending money on anybody in society except themselves. But why are we even floating the boat, floating the balloon of overdiagnosis? And listen, I don't want you to feel that you can't contribute to the programme if you think that we are. But I doubt very much you'd be able to prove it, whereas it's incredibly easy to prove that there has been an enormous uptick in entirely authentic, genuine and bona fide diagnoses. What if it's just real? 0345 6060 973.
James O'Brien on LBC.
21 minutes after 10. A lot of you are a little bit more generous-spirited than me, which is nice, because you point out perfectly plausibly that Wes Streeting may be seeking to prove that there isn't any overdiagnosis. And how do you prove that there isn't any overdiagnosis without having an inquiry into whether there is overdiagnosis? But it seems to me that you're letting the narrative be set, or you're following a narrative set by ghouls like that Richard Tice character who was complaining the other day about children, autistic children, because it will almost always be autistic children who wear ear defenders because their hypersensitivity to noise makes their life unbearable without them. But you would never have seen children in ear defenders when we were at school, therefore these conditions must not be real. It is a right-wing position to adopt, but it doesn't mean that overdiagnosis doesn't exist. I just doubt it. And I wonder what you think and why. Michael's in Canterbury. Michael, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Yeah, I think there's a massive sort of level of ignorance still around the diagnosis. I think we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. As someone who's 53 now, diagnosed when I was 52 in January.
Gosh.
My diagnosis came out of my stepchild, Rue, getting diagnosed, and my partner gradually dropping the odd hint of, do you think, Mick, that you might have some of these issues with my being overwhelmed and literally struggling to get through the day, just getting up in the morning and everything's feels like the whole world is in front of you and you just can't get through. So to hear West Street, I give it the lip service it deserves. I mean, let's see what happens. But from my
what
experience,
difference does it make? What difference does the diagnosis make?
Crikey, it's literally. I'm 53 now, so I'm same age as yourself, and
I'm 74 according to Spotify, mate.
Yeah, same here on my work. It's not great, but that's another matter. But no, it's just mean. Let's just say, imagine 10 bricks built up in front of you and everything you've got to do in the day.
Yeah.
I take my medication. Half hour later, my whole day, those bricks are broken down and put in front of me, and I can just go about my day.
Wow.
I work for a large pharmaceutical company. I've got a very supportive manager. I'm having the best year ever.
Really?
Yeah, it's been radically changed my life, and I can't thank the people who support me through it, my family, the provider. Getting the actual diagnosis is the thing. People go through the NHS and you hear about years. A lot of people don't realise about right to choose in England and stuff like that. So that's the thing. We're still being held back.
Is it possible?
It's very difficult.
Is it possible that some neurodiversities, ADHD included, make us less likely to seek a diagnosis, because it's quite a faff. You've got to provide another brick. You've got to get another brick. Oh, bloody hell! I've got to get a diagnosis now as well.
Yeah. And imagine
I'm already overwhelmed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've got so I've got to fill in more forms and, and get on the phone to people. Absolutely. But and it all depends how it impacts you. I can see from my life how incredibly debilitating it's been, and it's held me back. I've had to grieve that process. I had to go through that and unwrap that, and it's taken some time and effort, but I can only look forward now. And that's a beautiful place to be in.
It's a beautiful place to be in. And then, so this word overdiagnosis, give him the biggest benefit of the doubt and say it might well be that this inquiry provides proof that there isn't any, but the real people, the problematic people in this conversation aren't going to believe it when that happens. You got this Tice character talking about ear defenders being a problem. You could have all the inquiries in the world and it's not going to pierce the inch-thick carapace of his so-called skull.
Really good ear defenders are the perfect antidote to someone like Richard.
It should make them compulsory. Nicely put. And so 2 generations there. I didn't know Mike was going to be on the other end of the line when I said, your child, in his case a stepson, gets the diagnosis, and you realise that you do too. How do we greet this word, overdiagnosis? Is it in any way likely to prove helpful? 0345 60 Deborah is in Sidcup. Deborah, what would you like to say?
Hello. I'm just really distressed by this overdiagnosing claim because I think it's making things really, really difficult for people who are... It's already very difficult. My daughter, who's in her 40s, she was diagnosed with ADHD just over a year ago. And she's been struggling she was privately diagnosed, but she's been struggling to get onto the NHS pathway with her medication.
Yes.
My grandson, he has autism and ADHD. There's a 3-year wait for medication for him, and he is really struggling. I mean, my daughter's never had a day off work because of her illness at all, so it's not that she's scamming welfare and wanting to use it as an excuse. No. It's just so hard. My grandson uses ear defenders in class. It makes such a difference for him.
Of course it does. Actually, no, let's not gloss over that, because they're a little bit obsessed with this programme, that lot. Just a couple of sentences, if you would, on the difference that those ear defenders make to that little boy's life.
They're crucial. They're absolutely crucial. They are crucial for him to be able to concentrate and do his work, because loud noise is torture for him. Or, he uses them for all sorts of things, but it's vital. But also the medication will be vital, because I've seen the difference it's made with my daughter. It's revolutionised her life. And I want the same thing for my grandson.
Oh, of course you do. What about this?
I also feel guilty with this overdiagnosing. I look back now and I think, why didn't I notice that with my daughter? Because nobody spoke about it. It wasn't that it wasn't there. Yeah. I look back now and I look and I think, how could you have missed that? And I thought, well, don't feel guilty because nobody spoke about it.
No, we didn't even know it. I mean, it was dyslexia was new when I was a kid. Dyslexia was a new thing that we were still a little bit wary of and thought, come off it. We called it thick in my day, but of course we know that it was nothing of the sort.
Exactly. And it's only when you look back, and I look back and I thought, yes, all the things I see in my grandson, yes, you did have them, and I missed them, but it wasn't my fault.
No, it wasn't. It categorically wasn't your fault. And how wonderful that society appears to be approaching a place where fewer and fewer parents will be in the position you have put yourself in future years. Just to be the devil's advocate for 20 seconds, Deborah, what if there are people in front of your daughter and your grandson in the queue who are swinging the lead? And I mean, I don't necessarily think that it's likely, but everything is possible, and therefore this inquiry somehow, goodness only knows how, will identify them and therefore shorten the length of the queue. I
think that would be useful if that were the case, but I think it needs to be framed in a far more
thoughtful,
neurodivergent friendly way, because if it's made clear that is why they are looking at it, but it seems to be constantly slanted from, this is one way of slashing the welfare bill.
Well, it always appears in the story, and that's why I'm always careful about which. I read all of them, but I'm always careful of which versions of a story I choose to have in front of me when we start talking about on the radio. So I went with the BBC today because, you know, for all their myriad faults, that they won't be indulging in abuse of children wearing ear defenders type rhetoric, or it was just called stupid in my day, or we used to just call it naughty. There's no such thing as ADHD. There's no such thing as autism. These people exist and their voices are very, very loud. But the BBC reaches the reference to the welfare in paragraph 2, 3, 4, 5 talks about how the government thinks that some people may be referred to waiting lists who do not need treatment. I wonder how big that percentage would have to be for it to become pertinent. Because if it's 5%, then you'd rather deal with that. You know, you always have to suck up a little bit of imperfection in order to provide the best available service. So you're always, in any system, even with unemployment benefit, which people still like to get very excited about, even if you find someone who is swinging the lead, it is not a reason to dismantle or start cutting holes in the safety net that is there to catch everybody else. I wonder how big the percentage would have to be for overdiagnosis, if it's even a thing, to be relevant to the overall conversation. And I think it would have to be pretty big, and I don't think it is. I really don't. Thank you, Deborah. Lovely stuff. Thomas Watts is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's possible that there is a genuine prejudice here, but some prejudices are unconscious. I've got a joke. It's not a brilliant joke, but I'm really pleased with it, about the way they treat Rachel Reeves. Did you hear yesterday's update on that chess story? Everyone's gone mad, haven't they, with regard to Rachel Reeves? I mean, a signally imperfect chancellor. Huge problems in her performance. But that's true of all chancellors. Yesterday, they tried to turn her childhood chess championships into a story. And the truth emerged a little later in the day. I shared it with you at the time, but I may share it with you again later, because even by the standards of our absolutely insane right-wing media, the Rachel Reeves chess championship story was unbelievable. It was a fine example of what I like to call, wait for it, Rachel prejudice. No? Oh. I was really pleased with that. You don't deserve me. It's no good just sending me screenshots of your Spotify Wrapped with me in the top 5. I expect laughter. I expect gales of laughter in response to puns like that. All right, I don't. But I do know that a lot of prejudices are entirely unconscious, subconscious. So because mental health is invisible, often, not always by any stretch of the imagination, but often, we perhaps still inhabit a society where politicians like Wes Streeting are a lot more comfortable talking about overdiagnosis than they would be, for example, in the context of prostate cancer. No one is ever going to say oh, crikey, there's been a huge uptick in prostate cancer diagnoses, largely because we're testing earlier and better and more widely, brackets. There's been a huge uptick in prostate cancer diagnoses. I'm going to launch an inquiry into whether we are overdiagnosing prostate cancer. Do you see what I mean? It's not an absolutely watertight comparison. It's not perfect. But I think it merits a little nod, doesn't it, of recognition. And any visible disability or condition is highly unlikely to fall under the suspicion of overdiagnosis. But everything from ADHD to autism, and there's lots of things in between, other mental health conditions, up to and including depression, we can be suspicious by. I suppose you can't fake a prostate cancer diagnosis unless, you know, you kind of behave very oddly and start doing stuff on the internet with Photoshop and things. But how likely would the conversation ever be in the context of diagnoses rocketing because of recognition, testing and identification, if it was a visible condition as opposed to an invisible one? Just another thought for you. Aisling is in Surbiton. Aisling, what would you like to say?
Hello.
Hey.
Oh, God, I have so much I'd like to say about the overdiagnosis thing and everything, but I'd really just like to tell you 2 stories.
Okay.
One is about me and one is about my daughter. My daughter is 14. She was diagnosed as autistic at 6 after 3 years. she had EBSA in about 18 months ago, which means emotionally based school avoidance. So basically, because of her anxiety around attending school, because of her autism and her sensory problems, she couldn't go to school. She just stopped. She's cognitively very, very able. So it was just like a complete shock for everybody in the school and everything. But because she has an EHCP and we knew she was autistic and the school was really supportive, we were able to get through that period, and she's now in a smaller independent school where she is doing brilliantly again after 18 months out of school. She's getting 9s and 8s in her...
So diagnosis sets you free?
It sets her free, yeah, absolutely. She still has loads of challenges in school she wants to overcome, but she's getting the support. She wants to be a lawyer. There's no reason why she shouldn't be, and, you know, live an incredibly productive life. So that's what happens when you get a little bit of support, and I've had to fight for every bit of that. Of and she doesn't get as much as she should, but it's still, you know, it's brilliant. My situation is that back in the 80s at school, I couldn't go to school from much earlier than her age. From 5 or 6, I had to stay home quite regularly. And by the time I got to my teens, I was out for literally months at a time. So it was a huge problem between the school and my family and my extended family and friends. And I was ostracized at school because I was just seen as this weird person who was taking the proverbial and not coming to school when she didn't feel like it.
This is the absolute crux of it, isn't it? Because that idea that you were somehow doing all this on purpose lies at the heart of the narrative of overdiagnosis, I think.
Yes.
Well, people pretending in order to access the pittance that is available on benefits, and the number of children that need an EHCP versus the number of children who've got one is a national shame. But that thing there is changing, right? I mean, it
was changing, but it doesn't feel like it is anymore. I mean, I was saying to your researcher that she asked me if I was happy about this SEN review, and I was, in theory, because you know, it's not working. The process is not working for the young people and children who need support and their carers who are trying to help them. But it feels like it's being framed now. The narrative is being framed as just another one of these scapegoat issues. You know, of they're taking the they're looking for money. They're just sort of getting a ticket out of life.
And even lower down the sort of hierarchy of prejudice, it would be, well, it's all very sad, and I'm very sorry for you, but we can't afford to look after everybody. So you actually end up in the long term. I wish there was a word for this. There probably is. I just don't know what it is. Of the decision not to spend money, because EHCPs are expensive for local authorities, can be, not to spend money in the short term, but it ends up, of course, costing society a heck of a lot more money in the long term.
A great deal more. And not to mention I, for instance, have not been able to work properly for the last 2 years because I've had to, and I'm lucky I'm in that position that was possible. It's financially really hurt us, but we were still able to do it because I had to be there. I had to take her to school. I had to wait to see if I could get her in. I had to bring her home again. I had to go back and get her. I had to take her to the provision. I had to take her to the therapy. I had to take her to the CAMS appointments. I had to be constantly around to support her. So we haven't claimed anything for that.
And if her situation didn't improve, I know you know this, but for the benefit of people listening, then that could have been your role for the rest of her life, or at least for the rest of your life. But by getting the help that she needs, this is why you opened your conversation by saying that she wants to be a lawyer and she's doing really well at school. She becomes a different person from what she would have been without help.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just say also about the ear defenders?
Yes.
So she was in a very large mainstream school to begin with when she went into secondary school. And she had to wear ear defenders every single day, all day long, because of the sensory issues. You know, the bells going off, the screaming, the shouting, the noise. And she didn't want to be wearing ear defenders. She's, being sort of...
Because it makes no kid wants to stand out. or hardly
no kid wants to stand out. And it was also hurting her. She had ear infections. She had a lockjaw thing at one point. So it's not like a happy, choice to decide to do something like that. You do it because you have no other choice. Because things are just unbearably painful, and there isn't a choice in it. And the other thing I'd also like to say, if I can just hijack you for a little bit longer, is the idea about this. Well, first of all, neurodiversity is not a mental health issue. And the idea that people are just jumping on to, I'm going to go for an ADHD assessment because it's trendy or because they think they can get something out of it. You have to show when you're being assessed that it goes back. It didn't just start yesterday, that it's something you have lived with all your life. So it's not that people are just, getting more and more diagnoses when they don't deserve it. We're just starting to open up our eyes to what's really out there. And in my case, I dropped out of school when I was 16 or 17 because I couldn't go to school. And that is not what we should be looking for.
No, because of course you could have done, but only with the sort of help and support that you've managed to secure for your daughter. And I want to make just another point, another stress on what Aisling described about being able to do that. It's not just the financial wherewithal, albeit that people will struggle to do what she did. Some people will be signally incapable of being able to do what she did in terms of giving up work and providing that level of care and company for a child as they receive or seek the help that they need. But the other element of it, of course, is that it takes a certain type of person as well. We're not all very good at pushing our way to the front of a crowd, or saying the system is wrong, or that this needs to be different, telling a teacher that they are approaching your child wrongly. It takes a certain type of character, not better or worse than other types of character, but a certain type of character that not all of us possess. Speaking of characters, I had to double check this story because I thought it might have been exaggerated, and it happened earlier today on a different radio station. But the man who has a massive problem with children who wear ear defenders has described the allegations of hideous anti-Semitism levelled at Nigel Farage as lefty twaddle. This is Richard Tice's contribution to a national conversation that is gathering volume, despite the fact that Nigel Farage is currently hiding and really hoping this will go away. So I'm going to break cover slightly on this with regard to Peter Etedgui, the BAFTA and Emmy award-winning director, who has recalled Farage sidling up to him at school and saying Hitler was right, and gassed them, sometimes adding a long hiss to simulate the sound of the gas chambers. But I'm going to tell you that Peter, because I'm sure that he won't mind me telling you this now, Peter told me exactly that story in person, face-to-face, quite a few years ago. So when Richard Tice comes out and accuses him of lying and claims that it is only being done now by people who are lying because they want to stop Nigel Farage from becoming Prime Minister, I can tell you, I can't remember the exact month, but Peter told me that in either November or December of 2018, face to face. I can remember the room I was standing in at the time, and I can remember him telling me, and I can remember him explaining why he didn't want to share these stories in person on the programme, but he wondered at the time whether or not I might be able to work them into. My first book was just out. That was the event I was attending. So Richard Tice accusing Peter of lying because he has suddenly decided he doesn't want to he doesn't want Nigel Farage to become Prime Minister, will, if he has any honour whatsoever, withdraw that accusation when he knows that I, James O'Brien, had a conversation with Peter Etedgui in 2018, November or December of 2018, in which he told me exactly the same story. He made exactly the same allegations regarding Nigel Farage's anti-Semitism at Dulwich College during their shared school days. He made exactly those allegations to me in person in November or December of 2018, and I can pinpoint the date because I can remember the event that it happened at, long before anybody entertained the frankly ludicrous possibility of Nigel Farage becoming Prime Minister. So when that is brought to Richard Tice's attention, and his rationale for accusing Peter of lying is revealed to be completely wrong, it's given the benefit of the doubt, even though he never gives it to anybody else. When he discovers that Peter has been sharing this hideous experience for at least 7 years, then he will have to withdraw his claim that he is lying in order to, or because he has suddenly become worried about Nigel Farage becoming Prime Minister. He's been telling the story for the best part of a decade, pal. You're going to need some very big ear defenders to avoid this piece of information.
James O'Brien on LBC.
2:11, there it is. It was the 4th of March 2019, so 6 years ago. 6.5 years ago. The book itself came out in November of 2018. That's why I got confused a moment ago. The 4th of March 2019, when Peter Otegi told me exactly the same story about Nigel Farage's hideous anti-Semitism when they were at Dulwich College together that he has now chosen to go public with. So when Richard Tice accuses him of being a liar and being motivated by a desire to stop Nigel Farage becoming Prime Minister, then he would have to account for why Peter Otegi was telling exactly the same account, sharing exactly the same memories 6.5 years ago. And that's just me. There'll be other people from his past with whom he had shared these stories sooner. So there it is. Just something I thought was important to get out there, because A, when you accuse somebody recalling anti-Semitic abuse of being a liar, you're moving into hideous territory. But because we are better people than some, we give people the opportunity to correct the record when they are given proof that they are wrong. In this case, the claim that this is a recent invention born of political bias is categorically untrue, because it is at least 6.5 years in the making, and obviously longer. 10:52 is the time. Speaking of Farage, he remains hiding because he's terrified even by all the soft soap journalists that he ordinarily breaks bread with. He's terrified of being asked about Russian bribes and anti-Semitism and racism. So oddly, a man with a season ticket for every studio in the country except this one, at least while I'm in it, is currently keeping an uncharacteristically low profile, but it doesn't stop him from making pronouncements unchallenged. Which racist trope do you think he has returned to today, despite the fact that he has been provided with incontrovertible evidence that he is behaving dishonourably? Is it A, the complaint about people speaking foreign on trains? Is it B, the complaint about school children not having English as their first language? Or is it C, the complaint about there being too many black people in adverts? Which racist trope has Nigel Farage revisited today, despite having been provided with absolutely incontrovertible evidence that his position is dishonest, dishonourable and flawed? Is it A, people speaking foreign on trains, B, children in primary schools who do not have English as their mother tongue, or is it C, too many people of colour appearing in adverts? I'll share that with you shortly. 10:53 is the time. Back to overdiagnosis and the very real possibility that it's not a thing. And by entertaining the possibility that it might be, you potentially, Wes Streeting, make everything worse. Adam's in Wigan. Adam, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. You okay?
I'm all good.
I rang up just basically to share my experience and give an opinion on the overdiagnosis thing. So yeah. I've literally recently been diagnosed with autism and ADHD. It came as a complete shock to me because for most of my life I've just been dealing with anxiety, low mood, depression, and it's just sort of escalated through talking therapies, counselling, then on to psychology, then up to an actual psychiatrist who's sort of expertise is this diagnosis, and he's like going through questions and checking things. And one of your previous callers said this isn't something that's easy to fake. It's they look at the people around you, your friends, your family, your employer, medical records. They basically go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, ask you questions, and it's like, oh yeah, do you do this? Do you do that? And it's like, yeah. And it's like, well, that's autism. So it's kind of like...
What did you feel in that moment? I mean, what was your, like, seriously, your sort of gut reaction?
No, it's not. Was my gut. I thought, no, it can't be. It's right. Literally, you know, because I've done so much personal growth and work on psychology. I've done cognitive behavioural therapy, dialectical behavioural therapy, compassion-focused therapy, done a lot.
Bloody hell.
And to be told by a medical professional, actually, that's autism. And we even started laughing further on because I wear the same sort of types of clothes.
Right.
And he said, well, there's a reason for that. It's because you're 37. You've found what what you prefer, what clothes you like, because you have sensitivities to clothes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I? I wouldn't know because I always wear the same clothes. And he said, well, there you go. That's the scaffolding.
You found what you're comfortable in, and you've stuck with it, but you haven't clocked the reason why you're doing that thing.
That's it, yeah. So and there's loads of little things I'm beginning to notice now, and this is what the diagnosis has done for me. It's making me stop and check, because one of the symptoms I've had all my life is this self-blame, that it's my fault, that I need to change this. And yet there's been loads of work that I've done on accountability, because one of the traits that I have is I speak bluntly. Right. I don't quite understand the emotional sort of social aspect of things, so I say things which are quite awkward to most neurodivergent people, and I'm like, what's the problem? I don't realise I'm saying it. And with that, I can be misunderstood and sort of tarred with the same brush as somebody who's being ignorant or
deliberately obtuse, being deliberately rude.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So that's been my experience of things. It's also unlocked for me where you were saying about in school, you told you're naughty. I'm a father. I've got a little girl who's 7 years of age, and tragically, she's having to undergo the experience of her parents separating.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was like over 12 months ago.
Right.
And her behaviour's obviously become a little bit different, erratic, because it's been destabilised and deregulated. But as time's gone on, where she should be sort of getting used to this and stabilising, she's not doing. And she does she puts her hands on her ears with overwhelm. Oh. And it's like, it's so easy for me, even being autistic and having this ADHD, but not realising it, to say, stop being naughty, this behaviour isn't acceptable.
And you catch yourself doing that because it's a reflex, it's a social condition.
Yes, absolutely. Now I catch myself doing that, and I go, oh my goodness, hang on a minute, this isn't naughty behaviour, this is overwhelm. And it allows me to put myself in my daughter's, how she's feeling, which is not something that's easy for me, because I'm people think I'm selfish, and it's not that I'm selfish, it's just that I process emotion differently and I get hit.
Wow. You're incredibly self-aware. I mean, that presumably is a consequence of a lot of things, but a lot of the therapy you've had has equipped you to cope with the diagnosis and to absorb the diagnosis better than you might have done otherwise.
This is what I'm discovering now. So with ADHD, there are medications you can take which will assist you for maybe 10 to 14 hours, if, depending on everybody's individual. But there's no medication to assist with the ADHD, so the therapy is absolutely crucial. So in terms of the global economics of things, or rather the national economics of things, Wigan, I think, is the number one town in the northwest of England with the highest suicide rates in men.
Is it really?
Obviously, this is an issue that's taking over the country in terms of suicide rates. Mental health has always been there under that broad title, but it has so many branches underneath mental health. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. This overdiagnosis of autism...
in quotes, overdiagnosis is just... underdiagnosis consigns people to a life of being misunderstood and being miserable.
Yeah, so I'm saying, well, there should be an overdiagnosis, because, like I said to you, said to your producer...
What would you rather, over or under? It's that simple.
Yeah, like I said to your producer, if you go back to the 1930s and 40s... Gay wasn't a thing. Nobody was gay back then. That wasn't a condition. But actually, yes, it was. It was just that people were adapting to the society.
Go back 20 years. Go back 20 years further, and we were shooting people dead for having post-traumatic stress disorder, because they were being shot for desertion in the First World War.
Absolutely. Apply it to 2025, and you've got people like Nigel Farage blurting out what's on his mind, potentially not realising that that poor man himself could have ADHD undiagnosed.
That's a nice point, that. It's a really... Well, I was thinking that about Tice, not about Farage, actually. But that's very, very, very generous of you, in that someone speaking so crassly, which is a word I would use advisedly after your someone speaking in a way that is so utterly ignorant of feelings. It may be that he can't help it. And I don't say that with any side or snidiness whatsoever. It may just be that he can't help it, which is why I said a moment ago, now that I have told him about Peter Oteghi's long history of sharing these memories of Nigel Farage's anti-Semitism at school, there is nothing to stop Richard Tice from withdrawing his hideous accusation that Peter is lying, or that he's just suddenly come up with these claims in order to score political points. Thank you, Adam. What an hour. What a call. What a shame that we're still looking at this inquiry.
James O'Brien on LBC.
3 minutes after 11 is the time. We are going to return to this territory. Of course we are, because all of the traffic is moving in that direction. Oddly, I'm a little bit more upbeat about this inquiry, albeit that it features the word overdiagnosis, than I was at the beginning of the hour, because I don't think you can stand in the way of what is becoming increasingly clear. In fact, there is, would you believe, that there was an inquiry commissioned last year into ADHD reporting, and it was published in November of this year, as in last month. And among its findings is the following. My thanks to Beatrice for bringing this to my attention. We showed that in England there is consistent evidence that ADHD is under-recognised, underdiagnosed and undertreated. So I don't know whether the coverage of Wes Streeting's decision to hold an inquiry into potential overdiagnosis has been fairly reported. I suspect that it has, but they had an inquiry that concluded this year and was published last month, and it concluded that there is the opposite of overdiagnosis. There is, in fact, underdiagnosis. Make of that what you will. It adds a new dimension, doesn't it, to the question of what exactly he is doing this for and who exactly it is designed to appeal to. Best case scenario, ADHD appears in the headlines, but in fact the independent review will be more about mental health and possibly autism services. And now to the tale of our times, really. Police forces will have access to passport and driving licence photographs under plans being considered for the mass adoption of facial recognition technology even. So they are going to build a database containing as many faces as possible, right? And if you then do something that means the authorities want to find you, they will be able to match footage taken from CCTV, doorbell cameras, dashboard cameras, other technologies, presumably, some of which don't even exist yet, and run it through the machine and find you. It has been described by the policing minister as the biggest breakthrough for catching criminals since DNA matching. But and again, it's not necessarily the thickest of ice that I feel beneath my feet when I say this, but they don't have a library of our DNA, regardless of whether or not we wanted them to have it. So I mean, that's the problem here, isn't it? You're only going to be on this database, as far as I can understand, if you have come to the attention of the authorities. So albeit that they will have access to passport and driving licence photographs, the plans which are included in a consultation on new legislation would essentially free up police resources spent looking for people in order to identify them. Immigration databases will also be available to the police. You're looking at about a 2-year rollout for the implementation, but facial recognition technology, a database, if you like, of people that they are... there's a bit, you can tell from my voice, there's a little bit about this that I don't get. Will it have all of our faces in it? And that, in some ways, is both the fear and the question, isn't it? Because why shouldn't it? Why shouldn't there? I mean, you're not required to give DNA. I think it does. They're going to have access to passport and driving license photographs, which means they're going to have an enormous database. I mean, I look like, Elaine points out, like a lot of people, I also look like a criminal in my passport photograph. It's an extraordinarily unflattering picture, but happily it won't just be looking a bit dodgy that qualifies you for inclusion in this process. You're going to have retrospective facial recognition used to match crime scene footage against images on the police national database. And I still don't feel frightened. I mean, I do now. We've talked about this a few times. As it gets ever closer... Oh, do you know what I did last night? Of course you don't. That would be weird. I watched 12 Angry Men. One of my daughters is studying film, among many other things, and she was required to watch 12 Angry Men, and I'm trying to watch a lot of these films with her for two reasons. One, it's lovely to spend time together, and secondly, there's quite a lot of gaps in my film watching. In terms of the absolute stone-cold classics, I couldn't remember whether I'd watched 12 Angry Men, and I don't think that I had. I might have seen it as a play about 30 years ago, because it began life as a play. But my goodness me, what an extraordinary piece of drama that is. And it changed the way I thought about jury trials, in a way, because none of David Lammy's proposals are going to come close to a murder trial. You can shout "yet" at the radio if you want, but it's not necessarily a justified response. But just watching... can we do we don't need a spoiler alert on a 50-year-old film, do we? Oh, really? Eleanor thinks perhaps we do. Okay. So watching the workings of jury deliberations, okay? That's not very exciting, is it? Watching the workings of jury deliberations. But it made me think slightly differently about the conversations we had last week about jury trial, possibly earlier this week. I wonder what it would take. It's not that... Is it the Tom Cruise film? What's the Minority Report? Hasn't made me think differently about this. I just think... And forgive me for self-indulgence again. I kind of think I should be more frightened by this. I kind of don't feel the fear that I should fear. Part of it is Scott's fault. My friend Scott, who dealt with one of my early fears about this, which was, well, what if we introduce the technology and then we end up with a fascist government, which, according to the opinion polls, is quite a real possibility at the moment. What if we adopt this technology with a non-fascist government, although there's plenty of people who think that the current government has elements of fascism. I'm not one of them, but I acknowledge the existence of the people who do. What if we bring in this technology and then the fascists get into power and use it to track down people who, for example, say mean things about them? To which Scott's response was pretty irresistible, actually. He just said, look, if the fascists want that technology, then they'll bring it in when they get into power. It's not really an argument against doing it. You don't say, we better get rid of the army, because what if the fascists get in? And then they'll be using the army to attack our own people. Oh, hang on. That's reminded me. Simon Marks will be joining us at 11:45 to talk about the political situation, and unfolding elements of the political situation in the United States of America. As I display every time we talk about AI or similar, I'm not as au fait with technological advances as I am with some of the other subjects that we discuss together. But I kind of think that this is a no-brainer. It's a biometric tool. The police are going to use it. They're going to be able to access the plethora, the proliferation of images that we have now but didn't have before. You will be able to... There's an app in Wales that allows officers to carry out real-time searches in the street of the database. What exactly is being infringed here? There is a perception that this is Big Brother watching, concedes Superintendent Ian Taylor, who's in charge of the facial recognition work. This is Big Brother watching, police gathering personal information, and that is not the case. I would say to the public, you have nothing to worry about. 1,300 arrests by the Metropolitan Police in the past 2 years using this technology. They found more than 100 registered sex offenders who were in breach of their licence conditions. But still only 6 forces use it routinely, while others borrow the equipment for specific purposes. The plan is to extend it to every police force in the country, including the British Transport Police. What am I supposed to be frightened of? I've asked you this before, and I will probably ask it you again, unless you bring the clincher to the table. What am I supposed to be frightened of? Because I think that we've dealt with the most urgent concern, which was what it might be used for in the future. I'm worried about now. What am I supposed to be worried about now? I think, and I usually find myself siding with civil liberties organisations or human rights organisations when it comes to state overreach, but I find myself wondering whether we are all being a little bit Luddite. Whether we are a little bit like the widespread perception of King Canute on the beach. Everybody thinks historically that he was trying to turn back the tide, but he wasn't. He was demonstrating to his nobles that he couldn't. He was reminding them that he was not divine, or at least he was not possessed of supernatural powers. Look, I am telling the tides to stop coming in, and they're still coming in, so stop treating me, said King Canute, as if I am all-powerful and I can make things happen that can't happen. It seems to me that the technology is a little bit like the tide on this one, and that you can sit there as a civil liberties organisation, or indeed as a worthy figure, and say this is terrible, we must resist it, but the tide's going to come in anyway. Yeah, we've got doorbells now. I can now literally see whether there's anybody outside my house. I can pick up my phone. You know this. I'm not shocking you with any new information. I can pick up my phone now, press a couple of buttons, and I can see my garden path. I literally see it. So the idea that the police wouldn't be availing themselves of new technology as and when it becomes available seems to me to be a little bit bonkers. That is, and it's not 52-48 today, that is about 65% of my feeling at the moment, that resisting this is ridiculous. 35% of my feeling is a sense that there's something a little bit wrong. A sense that I should be worried, but I'm not quite sure what I should be worried about, and I want you to tell me. You are also, of course, welcome to join me in being cautiously welcoming of this technology. In the secure knowledge that I will never be a sex offender, the idea of being able to identify sex offenders who are in breach of their terms without any other fuss or rigmarole seems to me to be a wonderful thing. Or indeed, criminals who are on the lam, as I think the phrase used to be. People who've absconded. In a world where the Justice Secretary seems to be routinely revealing that prisoners have been released by accident, surely it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to find them and get them back into prison if we're deploying this facial technology. So, in a world where I can currently see the garden path outside my house from 4 or 5 miles away, what am I supposed to be worried about with regard to facial recognition technology? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. I don't think it's one of those stories that is going to admit much personal experience. I mean, I know that some of the early iterations of it, some of the technology made people from ethnic minorities much more likely to be misidentified than people who weren't. And I'm not making light of that, but it would be something that was dealt with. And again, I fully appreciate that that's easy for me to say as someone who wouldn't be on the wrong end of it. But the technology is only going to improve. What are we supposed to be worried about? As the civil liberties organisations and sundry other people who I respect and admire queue up to tell us to be careful what we wish for, what is wrong with wishing for this? 0345 6060 973 is the number you need.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Listen, if I didn't make this clear before, I'm sorry, but it's the philosophical challenge I'm interested in. The teething troubles with the technology notwithstanding, it's the philosophical challenge of the police needing to find me and being able to then access my passport photo or my driving licence and use that photo to program a computer which then employs a super camera to look at every face going past, and it will flash up when I turn up. So it's not, and again, I don't think the philosophical question of what we're supposed to be worried about today is answered by saying, oh, but what if this happens tomorrow? I'm going to be quite strict about this. It's not a database. The database exists. That's the point I missed in my introduction. I apologise, I was being a bit dopey. The database exists. There is already a database of our passport photos and driving licence photos, obviously. The police are not going to have unlimited and untrammelled access to that. They are going to be able to say, we are looking for James O'Brien. We don't have very good pictures of him. Can we access the database to find a couple? And the answer is yes, you can. And then they use those to find me if I happen to be running around in public. And I can't see anything wrong with that, philosophically. So the mythical future, the theoretical future and the technological concerns are not currently clinching answers to the question that I'm asking. The reason why you should be worried about it is because of something other than the thing that you're talking about. Do you see what I mean? I don't think I'm being unduly strict. The area in which perhaps I'm being a little bit arrogant or indulging in white privilege is raised by Cab here in a couple of messages to Blue Sky. Of course you don't fear facial recognition. You have a middle-aged white man's face. How don't you get this? There's you and a young black bloke walking past the same crime scene in video footage. Who gets their collar felt by the institutionally racist Metropolitan Police? And I don't want to sound glib or dismissive, but that's not how it works, Cab. That they would have a picture of if they were looking for me or the young black bloke, they would have our pictures in the database and they would flash up in the event of us walking past. Now, certainly at one point, and possibly still now, the likelihood of a false positive was higher for people with darker skin than it was for people with white skin. And I don't really get to say, oh, you've got nothing to worry about, they'll soon iron that out if they haven't already. So that is a valid objection, but it's one that I'm aware of, and it isn't quite the problem that you frame. It would be looking for somebody specific and finding the wrong person. And that's horrible, right? No one wants to have their collar felt unfairly. But as soon as they find the wrong person proves that they're not the right person. That's really easy to do. Someone comes along and puts their hand on the shoulder of a dark-skinned person who's been a victim of a false positive. I'm not for a minute suggesting that this is fun or negligible or easily dismissed, but they say, John Doe, I'm arresting you on suspicion of, and you say, I'm not John Doe. And the copper says, yeah, they all say that. And you say, yeah, but here's my driving licence, here's my passport. Here is, it'd be impossible to prove that person was the person that they are not. And very easy to prove that person is not the person that they are not. I think that closes down that line as well, but I could be wrong. Luke's in Bromley. Luke, what would you like to say?
Hi. Yes, like you, I feel like I should be concerned, but I'm kind of reassured that maybe it's a way of mopping up the streets with bad people.
Just making it easier to find people that the police are trying to find, and who could be opposed to that? Yeah.
So assuming we've got nothing to hide, which obviously most of us haven't, I haven't, you haven't, then I don't really have anything to hide. I mean, like you say, I've got technology as well, doorbell. I've got an Apple doorbell, actually, so it does facial recognition already and tells me who's at the door.
Does it? Oh, yours is better than mine.
Yeah, well, you probably went for a ring, but there's better ones.
Typical.
No, I mean, it'll tell you John Smith is at the door. It'll even actually read the name on the parcel and tell you if it's like FedEx or Amazon.
Good Lord.
So we've got the technology, and I just wonder if it's actually going to help us.
Is it a problem of selling? Is it actually the way that the conversation is packaged? Because, look, these are not stupid people. The director of Liberty says the government must halt the rapid rollout of facial recognition technology and make sure there are safeguards in place to protect each of us and prioritise our rights, something we know the public wants.
Yeah.
And I don't dispute what Akiko Hart says, but we're public, and we could quite easily have gone the other way on this, and we wouldn't really be able to explain why. What are we supposed to fear?
I think the best case study we've got with a lot of these questions you ask every day is look abroad and see how things are going abroad.
And how are they going abroad?
Yeah. So.
You don't know? I thought you were about to tell me. I didn't realise you were just queuing that up rhetorically.
An extreme example would be China, obviously, where they abuse it, And I do feel like they've got credits and things, and you can't get on the bus if you're not green enough and stuff.
Yes, of course.
So we don't want to go down there. And my biggest thing that holds me is like freedom of speech. Now, my doorbell does not tell me is it a Lib Dem or a Reform person yet.
It will. It'll recognise their rosettes if you asked it to, probably soon, if not now.
Well, my doorbell actually has the function of if someone's coughing, assuming they're thinking of perhaps some virus or something, I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of... I mean, I did stress in the outset that I am not technologically illiterate, but I am certainly by no stretch of the imagination up to date. And that's kind of the tide point I was making that Luke has just added to, this sense that it's all a little bit ridiculous to resist the unstoppable march of progress in this case, or nature in the case of King Canute. Big Brother Watch, which as far as I'm aware is no longer secretly funded. It used to be one of those, it was certainly in the same building at some point as some of the worst Tufton Street ghouls, but to the best of my knowledge it no longer is. So I will quote them on this occasion. Facial recognition surveillance is out of control. Live facial recognition could be the end of privacy as we know it. To which my question is how? How is it the end? Because the could be seems to me to be the category error. Oh, if it did this, and this, then it would be the end of privacy as we know it. Therefore, it could be the end of privacy as we know it. But we're not discussing this, and this. We're discussing that. And that is, the police are looking for me. The police are looking for you. They know your name. They know who you are. They just don't know where you are. So they access a database. They access your passport photograph and use that to program a supercomputer that will go off when you walk past one of their cameras. What is wrong with that? Because something must be. I'm with Luke. It feels like there must be something wrong with it. I don't know what it is. Bob's in Beverley, lovely part of the world. Bob, what would you like to say?
It's a lovely part of the world. Just a couple of things about future fascist government. I know you have made the point.
Go on.
Can I just have a go at it anyway? A future fascist government, yes, of course, could bring it in, but at that point we could still object. We could still put things in the way
fascists.
Of doing it as people.
They're fascists. They don't care about your objections.
But future fascist government will have it in place already if we put it in place now, so they won't even have to make the effort. We won't get to readdress it again.
But it's already in place, isn't it, really? It's just a question of whether or not they flick the switch. I mean,
well, that's an argument for no extremes at all, no red line. The other thing, I just wanted to say, present government, if we put this in place, it will address low-level crimes. Typically, I know sex offenders is quite rightly an important issue.
Yes.
But for the most part, crime since 1995 is down by about 80%. It would have made a lot more sense at its peak.
How dare you? How dare you share those facts and statistics? Because I love Twitter telling me that this is the least safe city in the world.
Absolutely, I know that. It gets good hiding if I put that on Twitter.
Yeah, incredible.
The present government, so they do this with CCTV, and then they say, well, we don't need to invest anymore. We're doing this. It's all marvellous. And so we don't need to invest in police anymore. But it's still not going after the main criminals who are online now. Okay. So there's all sorts of things.
Yeah, these aren't. Here speaks, I think, a former copper. Am I right?
Yeah.
Because so I do worry about those points, but they are peripheral points. They're not. You're not addressing the philosophical conundrum at the heart of today's conversation. You're giving me what ifs, aren't you?
Well, the future fascist government one, I think it would rob us of the opportunity there and then to say, well, this government, hell no, they're not going to.
Because they say that O'Brien bloke, we've managed to get him fired from LBC, but he's still slagging us off on social media. Yeah. We need to find him immediately.
Yeah, because James O'Brien brought in this vast plethora of new technology deliberately, we don't need to do it, so we're covered on that. But let's use it and abuse it. We don't get a chance to address them and to judge them as, hey, you're fascists, we're not going to have this.
Yeah, it is valid. It's why I mentioned it earlier, but it's not necessarily the deal breaker that I used to think that it was. The idea of it being a touch of the Theresa May's, an excuse to get rid of police. That's a worry, actually. But again, is it a big enough worry to be opposed to the actual technology? I suppose if you were a criminal, it would make you less likely to join the matrix, as it were. You possibly would think twice about having a passport or a driving licence, but usually for most people it would be too late by then. It's coming up to 11:30. Thank you, Bob. James in Glasgow's up next, first after the news. We've also got, of course, the unhinged headlines are back. They're creeping back, not quite with a vengeance, but slowly creeping back. Sadly, it's always the same journalist at the moment who is responsible for articles that appear under unhinged headlines, so no prizes at all for guessing who that is. Come on, guys, up your game. Alistair Heath is running away with it at the moment. There've got to be some other mad right-wing frothers out there who want to give him at least a run for his money. And Simon Marks, who has been on manoeuvres lately, but it hasn't, of course, changed the fact that the Donald Trump administration is lurching from hideous to hideouser, and we'll have some of the latest examples of that for you before 1 o'clock today. And at 1 o'clock, of course, it is Mystery Hour. I've just noticed we got the first call in. That's flipped. 12 o'clock today, 12 o'clock. People already don't call in for Mystery Hour until 5 to. All right, 5 to 12. You call in before that, I may ban you from getting on this week's programme. I have, however, got some very, very exciting Mystery Hour-related news for you. I wonder if you can guess what it is. Well, Thomas Watts brings you the latest headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 11:33, and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Keith, I think we should do an unhinged headline. It's my favourite jingle. Is it? What's it called again? Not a jingle. What's it called? A stab. It's my favourite stab. Is it your favourite stab? I just like the thoomph. Listen, anyway.
Unhinged headline.
I got that right. It was a thoomph, wasn't it? I do it again because I love it.
Unhinged headline.
Boom. Starmer and Reeves.
Unhinged headline.
Starmer and Reeves now represent a major threat to British democracy. We should probably do the missed information on the chess as well, because I don't think we can make this point often enough. This is from inevitably, the Daily Telegraph today. Starmer and Reeves now represent a major threat to British democracy. Oh, do you know what, though? To be kind, sometimes the headline can be unhinged, but the article beneath it can be quite measured and sensible. It doesn't happen very often, and the gulf is rarely enormous, but let's have a little look at the opening lines of this article to find out whether or not Alistair Heath is even more mad than usual, or actually on this occasion is at least demonstrating a patina of sanity. Let's start here. Labour lied to us. It deceived us. It sold itself on a false prospectus. It perverted every democratic norm to orchestrate one of the greatest political heists of all times, promising voters... Good Lord, no, that's certainly at least as unhinged as the headline above it. So, Boris Johnson fan says what? Labour lied to us. It deceived us. It sold itself on false prospectus. Sorry, Brexiter says what? Labour lied to us. It deceived us. It sold itself on a false prospectus. Sorry, Liz Truss fanboy says what? Labour lied to us. It deceived us. You could almost feel the flecks of spittle landing on his keyboard from here. But I don't want to be too mean, because they've obviously turned down the heat a bit on unhinged headlines lately. I'm sure it's not linked in any way whatsoever to the fun that we have at their expense, and I'm very, very keen for them to turn the heat back up again. So don't tell anybody that we're doing unhinged headlines again. All right, keep it under your hat. But that is a doozy.
Unhinged headline.
James is in Glasgow. Facial recognition cameras. What are we actually supposed to be worried about? Well, you tell me.
I haven't got any worries, to be honest.
But where are all these people who do? Or is it just the case that we've either scared them away, or they can't articulate what they're worried about any more than we can speculate what they're worried about?
I don't know. I think if it keeps anybody safe, or if it makes the police jobs easier, or if it takes more bad people off the streets, then I can't see a negative. I know there should be some, like you say, we should see something wrong with it, but I know I can't see any problems with it. And the only way the police would be looking for myself or for you is if you'd done something wrong, and then they'd have your pictures.
And if they collar us by accident, and again, I fully appreciate that this is more likely to happen to people of colour than it is to white people, but if they collar you by accident, it's quite easy to prove that you're not who they say you are.
Of course it is, yeah. You've got your driving licence there, it's not me. It's the same as if they were looking for someone with a red jumper. All right, you've got a red jumper on, they're going to pull you. But, you know, as soon as you pull your ID out, it's not me, they're going to say, sorry for bothering you on your way. So I don't see a problem with it.
It could be one of those stories that just seems to diminish in scale the longer it gets talked about. But I like both of these organisations. Well, I certainly like Liberty, and they are adamant that it is going to threaten us, and they're also adamant that the public wants safeguards in place to protect each of us and prioritise our rights. They're not actually calling for it to be abolished altogether. They're just objecting, as far as I can tell, to the rapidity of the rollout. But again, what is it precisely that I'm supposed to be worried about? Speaking of which, the phone-in we had about Rachel Reeves last week was about what it was she is alleged to have lied about. And of course, the claim that she'd lied about productivity was rubbish. It was completely dismantled by facts, but also by the representative of the OBR speaking to the Select Committee earlier this week. The accusation you can lay against her is that she omitted information, so that when she was talking about downgraded productivity, she didn't add that. the tax take had been enhanced by inflation, and therefore we had two things going on. We had a downgrade in productivity and an unexpected uptick in taxation. But she didn't lie. I mean, you can talk about a lie by omission, as that she should have told us the other bit as well, but all of the people that were calling her a liar were liars, or just people making mistakes. I don't know what word you would use to describe this character who came forward yesterday or the day before to complain that Rachel Reeves was describing herself as a British junior girls chess champion, because all she'd actually done was win a British junior girls chess championship. I'm going to say those words again. This character, Professor Alex Edmonds, was fated by ludicrously biased right-wing media, having come forward with a claim that Rachel Reeves had no right to call herself a British junior girls chess champion because all she'd actually done was win, and I'm going to get this absolutely right, the British Women's Chess Association Girls Chess Championship. Can you riddle that one, for me? So she won the British Women's Chess Association Girls Chess Championship, under 14s, but she shouldn't be allowed to describe herself as a British under 14s girls champion because she won the British Women's Chess Association under 14s Girls Chess Championship. He was arguing some bilge about the idea that you should only be able to call yourself... You see, they use the words here, a chess champion versus the chess champion. You have to enter the British Championship that's not just for girls in order to be the Girls' Chess Championship. You have to enter the Mixed Gender Championship, and the highest ranking girl in that is the Girls' Chess Champion, not the person who won the Girls' Chess Championship run by a different organisation. So to be sitting in a newsroom at the weekend or early this week and thinking, is this a story? And to be answering, yes, definitely, is a mark of madness beyond even the realms of the unhinged headline. So Rachel Reeves, for the avoidance of doubt, categorically did win a girls-only tournament run by the British Women's Chess Association. She won it. But she's not allowed to call herself a British junior chess champion. Girls. Because some bloke... And, of course, because it's Rachel Reeves and the entire right-wing media is suffering from a very horrible case of racial prejudice, ba-boom, I'm here all week, try the veal, that actually ended up in newspapers and on radio stations, that story, about her winning, literally winning, an under-14 Girls' Chess Championship, but lying about winning an under-14 Girls' Chess Championship. Happy days. We haven't even got a sting. Yes, we have. It's a missed information.
Missed information.
Thank you, Emily. I mean, I don't even know that there's anything to add to that conversation except to ask all the people that joined in what on earth they think they were playing at. And the question of what on earth they think they're playing at, what am I supposed to be frightened of with regard to facial recognition technology? Neil is in South Hams. Neil, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James. I can tell you're about 15 years behind the curve on this.
You're telling me. Sorry, what are we talking about specifically?
So the facial recognition software you're talking about, okay, I know for an absolute fact that a global tech company have been producing this and been working on this for 15 years for the UK government. I know that for an absolute fact because I know people that are working on it.
And also, I think, I sense, also because you do your own research on the internet.
Well, if I know...
Am I right? Am I right or am I right?
I work in the tech sector, so, it's... I don't fall down rabbit holes that easy when it comes to tech.
Nobody in the world thinks that they fall down rabbit holes easily.
This is true. This is true. What I would say is, yes, I would be concerned about it.
Why?
Principally because...
Yes.
There is mixed messaging coming from the police, government, and so on and so forth. So, for example, this morning on Nick's show, I caught a little bit where a police commissioner said the data would be held for days, weeks, whatever they said. But the chief inspector said the data would be held for, and I quote, milliseconds. It cannot be both. It just can't be both.
Well, it can. I mean, if they're referring to different data, it can. I didn't hear the juxtaposition that you refer to, but I imagine it's quite easily ironed out. The data is held for as long as they're looking for the person.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and then they find the person. It might take milliseconds, or it might take weeks. And once they found the person, they don't hold the data anymore.
If you're walking down the street,
and the data's held elsewhere, isn't it? I mean, it's not as if they're going to they're going to blow up the passport office and all our pictures with it. So the data is held. It's just the question of who is currently holding it.
So here's the fundamental problem you have with it: is the access of that data.
Yeah.
Okay.
To be clear, that's the fundamental problem you have with it.
Okay. Well.
So why?
So during COVID, Ipsos Mori was given access to the NHS database. So, and they used that under GDPR because it was a national emergency, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
So
what did they do? What did they do with it?
Well, I know they have contacted me outside of COVID.
Yeah, but what did they do with the access?
They have since contacted people. They contacted people for the survey during COVID. They have since contacted people after COVID, after the use of that data was accessed. So they have scraped the NHS database and they've taken that data. So
what? Forgive me, I'm not being glib. I mean, Ipsos Mori were keen to canvass experiences during COVID. And they have subsequently, you believe...
You're okay with a private company having access to the NHS database? You're comfortable with that,
access to my name and address and the fact that I've been diagnosed with COVID.
Right.
Yeah, I am quite comfortable with that. I mean, all of the people that made the vaccines were private companies, mate.
Yeah, but the people that made the vaccines weren't given access to the NHS database.
But you keep saying the words NHS database. What I mean, they don't know whether my tonsils were taken out when I was a child. They simply have access.
How do you know? How do you know that?
Well, because
we don't know that.
Well, we don't know. But we don't know. We don't know anything. All we know is what they tell us, and this is where we have to question your confidence that you don't get lured down rabbit holes because you're now believing. Why do they want access? I know, but we're talking about facial recognition cameras.
Yeah.
And you're talking about COVID already.
I'm going back, but I'm going back to the messaging of one...
what about ANPR? Because hang on, because you hop around on COVID. I'm going to hop to automatic number plate recognition. That's there now, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's out there.
Okay, so ANPR doesn't tell the police who is driving that car. It tells the police whether that car is taxed, insured, and is wanted for any outstanding.
Yeah, but it gives them a fairly reliable indication of who's driving it, doesn't it?
I could be driving your car. And
that's why I said fairly reliable, mate. So either it's been driven illegally, or it's been driven by the person that's allowed to drive it, who the police are currently looking for. So either way, they've got of course it's your personal data. It's your car.
No, it isn't. And how is it tells them the registered owner of the car.
I'm not feeling it, Neil. I can sense that you're really worried about this stuff, but
I'm not overly worried about it.
You sound pretty worried, mate.
What I'm questioning is how long they're holding the data for, because at the moment they can't get a coherent message together.
Well, hang on, you're basing that on Nick's show.
On a chief constable and a
but again, it can be a very nerve-wracking experience appearing on a radio programme. Can I make a suggestion? And I think we can part as friends after that.
Yeah.
Do you think that you think you're more important than I think I am?
No.
Well, because I'm not really worried by the things that you describe. I mean, listen, circumstances in which I'd be...
people about it, though, or give a point of view.
But it's not educated. If you come on a show and say, I know things for certain that I can't prove, that's not educating people. That's frightening them. That's the realm of the conspiracy theorists. And I'm sure you didn't mean to do that, but that's exactly what you did. So I always remember, I just don't think that I'm that interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I'm that interesting either.
So what are we supposed to be worried about? Becoming more interesting to the authorities?
Well, yeah, maybe. But, I mean, you have to consider the goalpost potentially moving.
Yeah, except we're talking very specifically about the goalpost not moving, aren't we? We're examining the wisdom or otherwise of these goalposts here staying exactly where they are. I understand the fears of things that are not happening. I could be frightened of lots of things.
Do you feel you have a right to privacy? That I guess, is the ultimate question.
Well, from whom?
Do you feel you should have a right to privacy?
Privacy from whom?
Well, from anybody.
No, not if I'm committing crimes. Of course
not. Didn't say about committing crimes.
But that's all that they're going to be looking for under the goalposts where they are now.
where they are now.
Yeah, and that's all we're talking about. So in the context of where the goalposts are now, is there anything to worry about?
I would say, wouldn't say worry, I would say concern.
Yeah, what?
Because I would like my data to remain my data.
But it will, unless the police are looking for you.
Or unless a third party gets access.
You've done it again. You've moved the goalposts.
No, I haven't moved the goalposts.
You have moved the goalposts. You've just introduced something that's not actually happening.
You can tell me no third party private companies can be involved in this.
No, I'm going to tell you that they are not currently scraping your data.
Well,
I'm getting quite a lot of complaints actually, so I should address those. Apparently, I'm much more interesting than I allow. Have a great day, Neil. Bye. There you go. It's 11:48.
James O'Brien on LBC.
11:51 is the time. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I don't know when this happened. I hope it's not a mark of maturity or a professionalisation of this programme. Perish the thought. But I keep running out of time to do everything that I promised to do. I've got 2 woke watches left over from yesterday. I don't know that I'm going to be able to deliver the answer to the Nigel Farage multiple choice on which racist trope he's trying to resurrect today. Could be all of them, of course, but on this occasion it isn't. And it's Simon Marks now, which always takes up more time than I intended because he's so blooming interesting. What are we going to do? And then it's Mystery Hour, and we never interrupt Mystery Hour for anything. And not even Simon Marks, I don't think, has ever interrupted Mystery Hour. Shall we start? I think that the Trump administration, with regard to Somalian people, we've reached the potential pogrom stage, have we?
Well, we've reached the stage of rounding people up and throwing them out. I mean, there's no question about that. And I think we have reached, James, a new stage in President Trump's administration. I mean, you will remember that about 10 or 11 days ago, he was in the Oval Office for that extraordinary meeting with Zoran Mamdani, the Democrat socialist who's about to become mayor of New York when the new year gets underway. And we all thought this was going to be a real slanging match, and it turned out to be a bit of a bromance that developed between the two of them. And when Zoran Mamdani was asked by a reporter if he still stood by his description of Donald Trump as a fascist, Mamdani started twisting in the wind a little bit, and Trump turned to him and said, no, it's okay. You can, it's fine. You can call me a fascist. You know, that's absolutely fine. I mean, here we are now, I think it's 13 days later from that encounter, and we are at the end of a week in which Donald Trump, I think, certainly on the issue of these Somalis, 63,000 of them living legally in Minnesota, many more legally
I want to make
living
that,
in Minnesota. Yeah. Absolutely. But now all being told that their status, along with the status of people from 19 other countries here, is going to be re-examined if they are permanent legal residents of the United States with those coveted green cards. They have today here absolutely terminated, basically put a complete freeze on all applications for US citizenship, even people who had already been told that their applications had been approved and they had a date in the diary for naturalization ceremonies from those 19 countries. They're being told, don't even think of showing up for the citizenship ceremony because there's a total freeze on your application. So, but this attack on Somalis particularly has been so ugly and so racially driven, so racist in the bigotry that President Trump has expressed over the last several days at the White House, that I think it's taken us into a new phase here.
That's why I reached for the P word, because I heard him say the phrase, I don't want them here. And he said that irregardless of their immigration status. I mean, technically, he could even be speaking about people who had been born in the United States of America to Somali parents. And that phrase, I don't want them here, is as close as I can remember anybody in the civilized world ever coming to the rhetoric of 1930s Germany.
Well, he called them garbage. He said their country stinks, which has come as something of a surprise to the authorities in Somalia, who have viewed themselves as being a very crucial ally of the United States in the war against Islamic fundamentalist terrorism in the region. But what we're seeing in Minnesota, the Department of Homeland Security, as ever, immediately snapped to attention. Thousands of additional agents being flooded there to begin an operation to start rounding Somalis up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and in other towns and cities all over the state. And again, of course, this is all happening in flagrant violation of the wishes of the Democrats who actually run Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Minnesota more broadly. But, beyond anything else, I think the language that President Trump has used in the White House this week to describe a community of people in the United States from Somalia, some of whom, as you say, may well have been born in the United States, has been the darkest, ugliest language we've ever heard from any president of the United States about any community of residents here.
And then from language to behaviour, because the sort of breach of norms with regards to these boats that are being blown up in the ocean is, I mean, it's actually quite hard to fully relate, isn't it? But I'm going to ask you to.
Yeah, and it's not just a breach of norms, of course. It's pretty clear, unambiguous, that this is a breach of international law and maritime law that the United States has been engaged in. More than 20 boats that we know of, because who knows how many they haven't told us about, have been blown out of the water as a result of US airstrikes and other military action on the high seas. You have to take it on trust from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, that these boats were indeed carrying narcotics and bringing them to American shores, even though Coast Guard statistics show that of the hundreds of vessels that have been interdicted on the high seas, that haven't been blown out of the water, 25% of them were found to be carrying no narcotics. So if you take that 1 in 4 percentage and apply it to the 20 boats that have been blown out of the water, and again, we have no proof at all to demonstrate that they were actually carrying narcotics to American shores, it's a reasonable bet to assume that at least 5 of those boats were not carrying any illicit cargo. It's a big day here today, though, because Admiral Mitch Bradley is going to be testifying behind closed doors on Capitol Hill about the strike in September on one of those vessels, in which it has been reported here by the Washington Post that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, directed Admiral Bradley to kill in a second strike 2 survivors of the first attack that could be seen clinging to the wreckage and trying to get back into what was left of the vessel. And the Secretary of War has denied that he was the man who gave the order. It was Admiral Bradley's operation. So he's thrown the Admiral under the bus. Donald Trump has sounded pretty iffy on all of this, said he didn't want a second strike to have been conducted if it was. And there's no question that that activity would have been, if it took place, a breach of international law. So there's tremendous interest here in what Admiral Bradley says today behind closed doors about the orders that he was given by Pete Hegseth, the former Fox News breakfast host, who extraordinarily is now in charge of 2 million men and women in uniform at the Pentagon.
Very, very insulting also of the Washington Post journalists who broke this story, despite the fact I think that one of them has a military record that makes Pete Hegseth look ridiculous.
Yes, and of course, despite the fact that the Pentagon press area has been flushed completely of what the administration would refer to as legacy journalists, those offices where journalists for all sorts of media houses used to sit are now occupied by a range of pro-Trump propagandists, including even Laura Loomer, the far-right influencer who now appears to have a Pentagon press badge, because they've all agreed to sign restrictions on journalistic activities at the Pentagon that every single media house, including Fox News here, refused to sign, so they were all thrown out of the building. The New York Times, within the last hour or so, it's been announced here, is now suing the Pentagon, arguing that those restrictions on journalists that Pete Hegseth ordered are unconstitutional.
Very briefly, Simon, because I'm already late for the news. Is there a sense, I've read some slightly more upbeat reporting, which seems odd against the backdrop of what you've described, but is there a sense that some things may be slightly spiralling out of Trump's control at the moment? at all?
Well, I think there's no question that MAGA is spiralling out of Donald Trump's control. I mean, the Make America Great Again movement that he created clearly is beginning to question his efficacy in office, and you've got figures like Marjorie Taylor Greene out there who have broken with him, leaving Congress. She could be very dangerous to him outside the tent as opposed to inside it. And the economy, I mean, you know, he's now calling affordability and people's concern about prices in supermarkets here as we head towards Christmas a Democratic Party hoax. I mean, you go to the supermarket, you pay your money, you see what's going on with prices here. It's not a Democratic Party hoax.
Simon, thank you. There is more that we could touch upon, but we are defeated by the time, including the extraordinary spectacle of senior members of his administration queuing up to essentially describe him as a cross between Santa Claus and the Second Coming. But we are, as I say, defeated by the time. Simon Marks live from Washington, D.C. Mystery Hour next. Book your place early if you can. 0345 6060 973. The time now is 12:01.
James O'Brien on LBC.
5 minutes after 12 is the time. Your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. I can say that in my sleep, I think, now. It's been tripping off the tongue so winningly. And I bet Reese can as well. Reese has been in touch with a message that begins, "Very sad of me, but I had this from Spotify." I'll share with you in a moment what it was that Reese received from Spotify, and you can decide whether or not it is indeed very sad of him. I don't think so at all. I think it makes Reese one of life's winners. More details to come. If you're not familiar with this feature, if that's the correct phrase to describe it, the correct word to describe it, then I think you're in for a bit of a treat and a surprise. Very different from the other 14 hours of the week that we can spend together, but it works on a fairly straightforward premise. Someone rings in with a question, a riddle, a mystery, a conundrum, and somebody else rings in with the answer. Somehow, between those two poles, the magic happens. But in order to ring in with a question or an answer, you need the number. And the number is 0345 6060 973. Speaking of numbers, Reese is in the top 0.5% of Mystery Hour listeners on Spotify. It goes up every week as a self-contained little podcast on Spotify. I presume that is the top cohort. It doesn't go higher than 0.5%, does it? I'm in the top 1% of people this year, and I always worry when a relatively hip young band appears on my radar. I always worry that I do them a disservice as a 53-year-old gob on a stick by revealing that I'm a huge fan of them. I can't imagine that they kind of welcome and relish that. Maybe if it was Chris Moyles or Johnny Vaughan or somebody else of a similar vintage to me, but rather more street credibility, then they and of course they play music on their radio programs on Radio X. But I always worry. But I am currently in, according to Spotify Wrap this year, the top 1% of Wonder Horse listeners. And indeed, their latest album is the album I listened to most last year, apart from a Johann Sebastian Bach album. I am nothing if not eclectic. So 1% on Wonder Horse, but Reese is in the top 0.5% of James O'Brien's Mystery Hour listeners. Does it go any higher than 0.5%? Is anybody getting the 0.1%? I doubt it. I think Reese is it. So how many minutes of Mystery Hour do you think Reese listened to get into the top 0.5% of Mystery Hour listeners? And the answer is, I was going to do a competition, but it'd be ridiculous. The answer is 25,715 minutes. Isn't that extraordinary? Well done, Reese. And frankly, why is everybody else lagging behind? It's there for you. The archive is available on the Global Player, on the LBC app, on Spotify, should you so desire. But there it is, 25,715 minutes of Mystery Hour. Apparently it goes up to 0.01%. Before the end of this hour, but if you're listening to the podcast, you won't be listening live, will you? Not if you've listened to 25,715 minutes of it. How come Reese was tuning in today? I want to find someone in the 0.01%. I recorded a video, but I can't remember who for. I got a little video off one of the members of Wonder Horse today. If you are in the sort of top tier of fans of a band or an outfit, or indeed a podcaster, you get a little video sent to you saying, "Hey, thanks for listening. We loves ya." I think I was a little bit more enthusiastic than the lad out of Wonder Horse who popped up in my inbox this morning, but probably not very. I can't remember which of the podcasts that was for. Was it for Full Disclosure? Was it for the Mystery Hour? Was it for the Whole Show podcast, or was it for the James O'Brien Daily? I think it was probably for Full Disclosure. Keith answers A to everything now, which is a little odd because I think he's saying A as if he doesn't understand the question, which is also possible. So I think it was for Full Disclosure. So if you're in the top, what is it, 5% of Full Disclosure? Listeners, you got a little message from me. Anyway, all of this is of absolutely no interest whatsoever to the massive majority of people listening to this programme who are never going to clock up 25,715 listening minutes in the course of a single year. 2 phone lines free. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. The new game is here. It's arrived in the UK, but it's not currently. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Steve's in Crawley. Steve, question or answer?
That'd be very silly if I said answer, wouldn't it? Because you haven't got any questions yet.
Yeah, well, this is true. There's another riddle. There's another mystery for the ages.
Oh, dear. Anyway, sorry. Yes, I want to know. Very, very simple question. I'm hitting the big 7-0 next year, and I want to know why I'm losing hair everywhere I want it, but it's coming out everywhere I don't want it.
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? I think we've had it before, but that's not a criticism.
I think you might have done, but I can't remember it.
We gave up years ago trying to police repetition.
Yeah.
So you're talking, for the avoidance of doubt and for the terrifying of younger men listening, you're talking about your ears?
Ears.
Nose.
Yeah, ears, nose.
Shoulders.
Shoulders. It's coming out a lot more on my shoulders and back than it ever
Knees
did
and
before.
toes.
That's it.
Heads.
My wonderful 8-year-old granddaughter commented on it the other day, and I thought, thanks very much for that, Paige.
Shoulders, knees and toes. Knees and toes.
One.
So, I mean, it's not fair. It's a grave injustice, and it's
Absolutely.
very, very true. You have to start. Do you remember the first time you were in the hairdressers and they said, would you like me to do your ears?
No, because I've done my own hair for you. Because I got so little, I just run the mower over it.
Well, so long ago for me. I remember the first time I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s. Would you want me to do your ears? I said, what are you going to do to my ears?
And those people have the wax stuck up their nose and have that pulled out. My God.
Yeah,
no,
all right, you're on. Why? I mean, biologically, what on earth is the reason, or evolutionarily, or scientifically, why on earth do we grow hair where we don't want it at roughly the same point in our life where we start losing hair where we do want it? 0345 60 60973 is the number you need. I knew this would happen. Wonder Horse fans furious with me for anointing that band as dad rock. They're not dad rock, Richard. They're just one dad. I'm one dad who happens to listen to them. I've got teenage children who introduced me to it. But if there's a better song out there at the moment than Teal, then I do not know. Then I haven't heard it. Remember, as we bid farewell to Steve, it frees up a phone line for you if you've been trying and struggling and failing even to get through. 0345 60 60973 is the number you need. Claire is in Ipswich. Claire, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on, Claire.
So, this is a bit long-winded. You might be able to help me somewhat.
Have you forgotten who you're talking to, Claire? Go on.
Okay, so how distantly do you have to be related to someone to be able to say you carry none of their genetic influence? Would you like the backstory on this?
Well, I have to now, don't I? It'd be so rude of me to say no, definitely not, go away.
Well, a good friend of mine, Neil, did my family tree, and he's very experienced at it. And when he showed me the family tree, he put a post-it over one corner of it and said he debated a lot whether to tell me whose surname was under there.
Oh.
And I'm ashamed to say it was Farage.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you poor thing. I thought it was going to be Fred West or someone like that.
No, it's even worse.
You said that, not me. Go on.
So, he very kindly gave me the chance not to know, but of course...
Oh, you had to tear off... Yeah, you tore off the plaster.
So, yeah, my great-great-great-grandmother was the youngest sister in a Farage family, and the Farage name
and it's him, it's definitely him.
Well, yes, the people that appear in my family tree as Farages,
yeah,
Neil has traced back to...
So would you have, if we did DNA tests on both of you, is what you're asking really, would a shared great be enough to flash up a genetic link?
Yeah, want some reassurance that.
Well, what if you don't get any? I mean, you've not learned from your last offer of being able to remain in blissful ignorance, have you? This could go horribly wrong.
After the initial shock, I've found it quite amusing, and it's made quite a story. But I'm genuinely interested.
When does a measurable genetic link to a shared ancestor disappear from our own DNA?
Yeah, that's
I like
a
that.
much better question.
Well, it's the same question. I've just tarted it up a bit.
Yeah.
Is there a helpline for anybody who's in the same position as you? There's another Neil who asked that question, unless it's the same Neil, doubling down on his contribution to the gaiety of the nation. Thank you, Claire. Good Lord, that's another reason never to go down that particular route. Who was I talking to about it the other day on genetics? And people, it's a mate of mine who's discovered that his dad, he's discovered extra siblings galore almost, actually. It turns out his dad, they knew he was a bit of a rogue, but they didn't know quite how much of a rogue he was. And it's all gone rather well. It's all gone rather nicely. But a lot of it comes as a consequence of not doing the family tree, but of doing the genealogy tests. There's probably a phoning in that soon. We haven't done it for years, have we? But be careful, beware of that stuff, because you never know what you might find, although hopefully it won't be quite as unpleasant a discovery as Claire's. 12:15 is the time. 2 questions for you. Why do we, particularly men, grow hair where we don't want it at around the same time in our lives as we start to lose hair where we do want it? I want a scientific answer to that. And if you have a shared ancestor with someone, how many generations down would a DNA test generally, like a bog standard DNA test, I'm sure that, the more sophisticated the test, then the further back you would go. But generally speaking, how many generations down would you go from a shared ancestor before there was no immediately obvious DNA genetic link between you? And if we get an answer to that one, Claire's delightful giggle notwithstanding, if we get an answer to that one, I will give you the money myself. It's 12:16.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12:17 is the time. I'm currently not live on TikTok. But I will be. Obviously I will be, but when? That's not a mystery, our question, by the way, but I will let you know when we have worked out how to access our own TikTok account. Should I have said that out loud? I don't know, but I have now. Anyway, hair and genetics are the questions on the board at the moment. Let's get some more. Polly is in Northampton. Polly, question or answer?
Hi, James.
Hello,
a question, please.
Carry on.
Hi. So we just had a baby. She's 10 weeks old.
No, we did not.
And
I've never met you.
Shame, you wicked boy. I've just had a baby. She's 10 weeks. And we obviously shush her quite a lot, so to get her off to sleep.
In a nice way. I mean, you mean like a
in a nice way.
Not like a shush.
Yeah, gentle shushing.
You've got the other one to look forward to.
Exactly. And so we'll shush her quite a lot. We even have a playlist on Spotify which plays shushing noises. And I suppose my question was, what is the science behind shushing and white noise? Why does it work
I think, and I don't know that I'm going to take a round of applause for this, but I think that it replicates the sound in the womb.
Yeah, there are womb sounds that you can put on as well.
Are they not quite similar? Are they not quite whooshy?
It's sort of like a heartbeat. Yeah, it's like a heartbeat, like a whooshing sound, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's like the whooshing sound is what you hear when you're in the womb. Obviously the heart. So I think it's that. I'm not going to take a round of applause because we'll get someone rather more qualified than me, and it might be something else. But it's very, very soothing, and some people never grow out of it. I have some very odd things filed away in my brain, Polly, and some of them turn out not to have ever happened at all, and not to be true at all. But I think that Wayne Rooney finds it hard to fall asleep unless he's got a Hoover on somewhere in the building.
Right. Yeah. See, I would hate that. Why does it work for some people and not others?
Well, exactly. But so why? Yeah. So why does it work for some people and not others? Might be rather harder to answer. But for a tiny baby, it's going to be because you've only relatively recently quit the womb. It probably works on all tiny babies, but most of us grow out of it as time passes. I'll find out for you. How are you getting on, by the way? How's she sleeping?
Yeah, it's going much better. She only woke once last night, which was wonderful.
It's a win. Sensation. No wonder you can listen to the show today. Thank you. Eleanor is sometimes asking questions herself. I don't know if you're allowed to. You have to ring in if you want to get a question on Mystery Hour, but she wants to know, can Wayne Rooney just play a Hoover sound rather than have an actual Hoover on? How would I know the answer to that question, Eleanor? How would I know the answers? I mean, A, I'm trying to present a radio programme here, and your job is to help me do that. And B, how would I know whether Wayne Rooney can just play a thing rather than... That? Next time I see him, I'll ask him. I promise. Martin is in Wembley. Martin, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on.
I just wanted to say I've been listening to you for years, and you've helped me overcome my stammer, so thank you.
How did I do that?
Just by listening to you.
Mate, what a lovely thing to hear. Gosh.
So, there were certain words or phrases that I couldn't say, and then listening to you using words that you would use and phrases has helped me overcome my stammer. So I just want to say thank you for that.
I'm getting a bit emotional here, man. What a lovely thing to hear. Where do I send the invoice? Go on. Question or answer?
Well, question is, I was walking home with my daughter yesterday from tutoring, and we were looking up at the moon because it was quite bright.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Full moon was cool. And as the clouds broke around it, you could see the outline of a rainbow.
Yeah.
And she asked me, why is there a rainbow at night time over the moon? And I said to her, I have no idea. And usually, as a dad, you go, oh, yeah, it's this, it's that.
I'm a bit of an expert, as Daddy Pig would say.
But I said, I know someone that will probably know.
Well, I don't know.
But I had no idea. I'd never seen it, and it was literally for like a split couple of seconds.
And you both saw it?
We both saw it. I took a picture, but the picture doesn't do it justice.
Wouldn't come out. So what exactly is the question then?
Why was there the outline? So why was there a rainbow around the moon?
My first thought is it probably wasn't around the moon, but the way that where you were standing and looking, the rainbow was quite far in front of the moon. It's a bit like the cow in Father Ted, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's also because it was dark.
How dark? It was dusk, was it? About 4 o'clock?
Oh, this was about 5:30.
Oh, okay. So it was such a bright moon, and you could see a rainbow around the moon, where there's no atmosphere on the moon, so it can't have been a rainbow, because there wouldn't be any water there, would there?
And
I've veered now into territory I'm supremely unqualified to explore. Can we dump that last bit? Is that out there now forever? Okay, great.
But I'd never seen anything like it. It was...
No, well, let's try and find out. How come Martin and his daughter... Do you want to tell me your daughter's name in case she listens back later on? You don't have to, in case it makes it exciting for her.
No, it's Maisie.
Oh, Martin and Maisie. Sounds like a sort of children's book waiting to be written, doesn't it? How come Martin and Maisie saw a rainbow over the moon last night? 0345. There we go. That's the question, right?
Thank you, James. That's it.
No, love it. 03, and thank you for that. It's a wonderful thing to hear. Thank you for taking the time to let me know. I know there's nothing I can do about it, is there? Or try harder to help more people deal with their stammer in the future. I'll just keep on burbling. And what a lovely thing. Thank you. We are now live on TikTok, I'm delighted to tell you. So make sure that you do that thing, but also the other thing that TikTokers do. What is it again? Press the screen. Hit like. You don't say hit like, do you? You just put double tap something, and also the other thing, subscribe. Subscribe to what? LBC's TikTok account. Yeah, but then you could get all sorts of characters popping up in your feed if you do that. You might want to be absolutely fine to do that immediately. I don't have really a tick. I think I've got one somewhere, but I'm never on it. Anyway, it's live now on TikTok. Seriously. Nicola's in Exeter. Nicola, question or answer?
It's a question, please.
Carry on, Nicola.
So my daughter's just had her ears pierced, and I need to change the earrings. And I was just wondering, why do different piercing holes react to different metals? So I've got my ear pierced like 3 times, but my middle hole can't have like gold or silver in. It's got to have something really cheap, but then another one has to have silver in, and I can't wear anything cheap. And I was just wondering why that was.
What happens if you wear the wrong ones?
It just gives like bright red, just gets really hot. Just got to get the earring out.
Oh, remarkable. Have you tried this? Have you checked this with other people?
Yeah, I think it happened to my mum as well. She's like, I can only wear silver in my second half.
I don't know why you're giggling. Where in the ear are the holes?
Just, normal lobe.
All in the lobe. They're all lobe-based holes. They're not in the tragus, or because my girls are trying to get piercings in every bit of their ear at the moment. You've got that to look forward to, I imagine. It seems to be
true. She's only 10.
It seems to be very fashionable. So they're all in the lobe, 3 in a lobe, 1 in the middle can't take. It's a bit like Jack Spratt and his wife. One can eat no fat and 1 can eat no lean.
Exactly.
So precious metal there, non-precious metal there, and all in the same lobe, the same sort of fleshy flap, if you pardon the expression. I have no idea. And your mum's the same. It might just be the two of you.
Yeah, but then, so my daughter's just had hers pierced, and I was thinking, what shall I put in? Shall I just, because she's had titanium, it's, very modern. So I was thinking, do I need to get silver? And I thought, actually, why is this? And I thought, I knew the guy to call.
Well, you say that, you know the show to call. It's very rarely me that gets a question correct if it's actually complicated, difficult, or in any way related to science. So we will try and find out for you, Nicola. A lovely, lovely question. So rainbows and ears, white noise and family trees and old Steve's body hair. Thank you, Nicola. Lewis in Putney is here. I tell you what, Lewis, you can be in the 0.5% of Mystery Hour listeners in your Spotify rap. You must be in the 0.5% of Mystery Hour contributors.
Maybe. I don't know.
I reckon you are, actually.
We'll have to look at the stats.
Over the years. What have you got for me now? Question or answer?
I've got an answer.
Carry on.
It's to the family tree in genetics.
Oh, splendid.
So the answer is approximately 5 generations.
Wow.
Because when you're looking at it, she's looking at it like a family tree, like either she's at the bottom of the pyramid, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
Or that you look at the other way and that grandparent is the top of the pyramid.
Yes.
When in reality, you're looking at a giant sort of rectangle, cube, because there's people coming in and out of it all the time at different generations. So yes, she would share. If she was, let's say, 5 degrees of generation separated from. I
think she said great grandma's sibling, so it's only 4.
Great. But again, it's still so she'll be more related than most, unfortunately. But
I knew this was going to go badly. If you compared, go on. Sorry, carry on.
Well, once you start getting into these things, it's like a parabola in how it changes and the amount of people. So I was like, if she was about 5 generations away, she would share the same amount of genetic material as about 1,000 people.
Right.
So. Or have 1,000, not 1,000, but you would have so many people who would share similar traits that, or that genetic trait, or traits from those grandparents.
It wouldn't be notable, but it would be measurable.
It would be. You could probably tell that someone was from a region, or or a certain ethnicity and things. But you definitely ethnicity, but you wouldn't be able to be like, these people are directly related. Because, like I said, it would be about 1,000 people. Hopefully you can hear me with a Chinook going over the head.
Yeah, no, I can, loud and clear, and nicely done as well. Qualifications?
I have a degree in medical genetics.
Of course you do, and it's served you in very good stead, at least on Mystery Hour.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's coming up to 12:29. Your list. Oh, round of applause for Lewis. First one of the day. So that takes us back to Claire's question, doesn't it? And there is Lewis. Just gone 12:29. Questions that still need answers, I will remind you of shortly. There's room for you to get on the board as Lewis vacates that phone line. You are free to grab it by dialing 03456060973. But Claire, I don't know what she's going to do with that information. It would be measurable, it would be traceable, but it would not be remarkable, is the short answer. Of course, under UK law, Claire, and this is the real point of your question, you would actually be legally able to marry Nigel Farage. So that's a big sigh of relief all round. Here's Amelia Cox with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12:32 is the time. Mystery Hour obviously does brook interruption, and indeed some weeks we drop it entirely because of breaking news. And I do just want to draw your attention to that report into the attempted poisoning of Sergei Skripal and his daughter in Salisbury in 2018, and the killing of Dawn Sturgis, a mother of 3 who died after being exposed to the nerve agent. I also want to do something, and this will be contained in the inquiry report. I don't want to suggest for a minute that it won't, but I've had the pleasure of meeting him on a couple of occasions, and his name is always absent from this coverage, and that's not a criticism of anybody at all, but Nick Bailey, Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey, became very ill after, the nerve agent had been smeared on the door handle of the family home, and Nick was first on the scene. He was subsequently, he retired from the police force after the attack left him with health problems, and he's a really lovely bloke. I met him on a couple of occasions, and you always think about that story as being the failure to assassinate Sergei and Yulia Skripal, but of course Dawn Sturgis's name for a while was absent from a lot of the coverage, collateral damage, to use a cynical term, and Nick is almost always absent from the coverage because there's only so much detail stories can contain. But I just wanted to mention him by name because his life was turned upside down by that experience as well. More on this inquiry, no doubt, with colleagues on LBC throughout the day. You, however, are at the altogether shallower end of conversation at the moment. You're listening to Mystery Hour with James O'Brien on LBC. 2 phone lines free if you're quick. 0345 6060973 is the number you need. Apparently it's called a moonbow, which is quite a felicitous phrasing, isn't it? A moonbow. So Martin and Maisie saw a moonbow last night without even knowing they were seeing a moonbow. And if, like me, you're a fan of alliteration, that's an almost perfect juxtaposition. Martin and Maisie's moonbow is what we're talking about today. That's lovely. Not, as one person has, I presume, accidentally typed on Blue Sky, not a moon boob. Definitely not a moon boob. But thank you for sending me that message. Whatever you do, don't Google that. So we need to know about a moonbow. We need to know about why white noise is so soothing, particularly for newborn babies. Brackets, I think I've done it, but I didn't take a round of applause, close brackets. Largely because I sensed Polly wouldn't have accepted my dubious expertise. Why does hair start growing? Roughly the time it starts falling out of the places where we actually want it. And why have I written down ears? Oh, ears and middle holes, and the and why piercings. The same lobe with 3 holes in it can have, and we've done the question about the family trees as well. The same hole with the same lobe with 3 holes in it can have completely different reactions to earrings. How does that work? So if we were to believe Nicola, and I've got no reason not to, her middle hole can accommodate only precious metals, while the outer holes can accommodate only I've forgotten the precise detail, but you get the gist. The number you need remains the same, whether you have a question or an answer. Pete's in Lincoln. Pete, question or answer?
Hi, James.
Hello.
It's an answer, please, to Maisie's question.
Yes, come on.
So, I love the term moonbow, by the way. I think that's great.
Isn't it nice? If it's a thing.
It's lovely. Yeah, it is. The answer is exactly that. It is a rainbow that they're seeing. What they're seeing is the reflected light off the moon coming back through the clouds that are surrounding or over the top of the moon, and that's doing a process called diffraction, and it's bending the light and separating it into its component parts in the same way a rainbow is made.
So how far from the moon will the clouds be?
Well, the clouds can be anywhere up to about 1,000, 2,000 feet, I would imagine, that sort of level. And it's just the angle that they're at to the way they're seeing that light.
Oh, that's what I thought. So it had a lot to do with where they were. Although a lot of people saw a moonbow last night, but that doesn't undermine your explanation.
It'll be more to do with the height of that cloud,
yes,
and the distance of the moon from that cloud.
And the diffraction of the water droplets in the cloud, of the light through the water droplets in the cloud, is what creates the moonbow. How rare are they?
I think they are quite rare, actually. I don't think I've seen many. I think I've seen maybe 1 or 2.
So a lot of people were photographing it last night, but it's very, very hard to photograph, as my inbox is now proving, with all the people sending me photographs of it that might... no, that one I can see. It's like a halo. It goes all the way around the moon. Sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's because of that, because there's so little other light, and you're just getting that reflected light off the moon.
Yeah.
You're seeing it as a circle around it, whereas
exactly.
in normal world, you only see the bit that's being reflected.
So all rainbows are circles, but you only see half of it in normal times,
Absolutely.
Oh, qualifications, what a lovely answer.
Well, there you go. My qualifications are... I've just literally had a moment of serendipity, because I've come out of looking at a guy teaching a lesson on this exact subject of diffraction.
Wow.
So,
well, you were doing the lesson. You were the teacher.
I was qualifying somebody else delivering the lesson.
Good Lord.
And they were talking about diffraction of electromagnetic waves.
And here you are, and finding it in the wild, in real life.
Yeah,
amazing.
Exactly.
Round of applause for Pete. Lovely stuff.
Thank you very much.
No, that's a lovely one. I like that. Also, Moonbow. Martin and Maisie's Moonbow. The mystery is solved. Lovely stuff. Sorry is in Hadley Wood. Sorry, question or answer?
Hello, James. It's a question, please.
Carry on.
So I've been suffering with cramps in my legs during the night.
Oh.
And my son's godmother said, well, why don't you wear a pair of socks? That stops them. And so I did, and it stopped the cramp.
What sort of
So
socks?
my question is, they're not DVT socks, they're just normal socks. They're not particularly tight around the ankle.
Really?
Yeah. So what's the connection?
And where were the cramps? In your calf?
Calf, feet.
Really?
Yeah.
It
really
must have
terrible
something
cramps.
to do with temperature, mustn't it? If the socks get rid of it?
I don't know.
I get cramps in one of my legs at a point, but there is absolutely no way I am ever going to reveal on the radio the moments in my life where I get that particular cramp. But you got it every night. You got it all the time.
I was getting them so frequently, and honestly, I put these socks on, and those cramps have stopped. They were ever so bad.
Do you know, I'm such a miserable git. I was getting ready to get cross with you for a really boring question, and I was going to tell off Rebecca for putting through medical questions on Mystery Hour. It's like a sort of 1980s phone-in when people ring in with their medical problems. But it's actually really interesting.
It is, and it's not DVT socks.
No, just normal socks. What, knee length, calf length?
Socks. No, just ankle socks, just up to the ankle.
So how did your daughter's godmother know this, do you think? Had she been there herself?
Well, you wouldn't believe. The godfather's brother, who lives in Spain, told her. So it's gone around the world.
This is an extraordinary international dimension to this question. Just when I thought it couldn't get any more interesting, it's gone global. This is extraordinary. You're on. OK, why did Suri's leg cramps disappear when she started wearing socks in bed? If you're just tuning in, this is, as I've said before, a slightly different hour of radio from the other 14 that we spend together, but it is nonetheless, in fact, it's probably the most illuminating. Why do babies get soothed by white noise? Why do men start growing hair where they don't want it at around the same time they start shedding it where they do want it? How can the same earlobe have 3 different reactions to metal when you have 3 piercings in the same single earlobe? And why did Suri's leg cramps disappear when she started wearing socks in bed? What a lovely collection of questions. Is that the lot? Have I actually kept a fairly decent note this week? I think I have. 12:41 is the time. Remember, there's a free Mystery Hour board game to the winner. In fact, this week, depending on the detail, when Eleanor rings you, you may be able to choose between the original Mystery Hour board game and the new pocket-sized Mystery Hour board game. So we're just not quite finalising detail. It's definitely going to be available before Christmas. Keep an eye on mysteryhour.co.uk for further details and ordering details. I think this is the week where I can say, when Eleanor rings you to say, congratulations, you've won, would you like to give me your address? She could also say, would you like the old one or the new one? Now, the old one is actually more expensive than the new one. It's a bigger game. It's like a traditional coffee table board game in a box, with my extremely handsome face on the cover of it. And it is quite an old picture, Keith, you're absolutely right. But my handsomeness is undimmed. And the new one is, I think it's going to be about $12.99, and it's in a little tin, and you can carry it around in your pocket, and we've changed the game slightly. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't want to own both. New questions, new cards, new everything, new rules. So it's up to you which one you want, whether you want the family-based board game, which would be quite nice at Christmas, and which is worth more than the new one, which is pocket-sized and perfect for sort of journeys and also at Christmas you could be travelling to me. Anyway, I digress. So it's imminently available, but not actually available at this precise moment. Full terms and conditions for the competition, because I give a free one to, as I say, my favourite contributor of the week, can be found at lbc.co.uk, and the games themselves can be found at mysteryhour.co.uk. Vivian is in Cheltenham. Vivian, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on, Vivian.
I was thinking about animals and allergies.
Oh, yes.
And I wondered can animals be allergic to humans?
What are we allergic to? Are we allergic to mites or to dust or to fur? I can't remember. What?
As far as I was aware, I thought it was skin cells.
I think humans can be allergic to humans, can't they? You read the occasional terrible story about people who have to sort of live in a bubble. I think there's a John Travolta film about exactly that.
Oh no!
Yeah, no, it is. It's. I've never ever thought about this in my life. Can animals be allergic to humans?
And then, I mean, it raises more questions, doesn't it? Because if you do have an animal that's allergic to you, how do you deal with it? How do you know they're allergic to you? You know,
yeah, you're only allowed one question, Vivian.
Sorry.
Is it possible for an animal to be allergic to a human?
Yeah.
Or another human to be allergic to you?
Well, I'm only allowed one question, James.
No, I know. I'm allowed as many as I want. I'm thinking of a few humans I think I might be allergic to, but what a great question! What made you think of it?
My cat brought in a live vole.
Oh yes.
And we got a humane mousetrap. The way you caught it was to put peanut butter in it.
Yes.
And my dad's allergic to peanuts.
Right.
And I suddenly started thinking about ways that animals could be allergic to things. And
this is the perfect answer to my question, because you've got three things going on: a human, an animal, and an allergy. And in your brain, you just sort of jumbled them all up and came up with a question of whether or not animals can be allergic to humans.
Yes, but I was somebody that called a couple of years ago and asked why pheasants were stupid, so...
When we work that out, I think of that question often. I was in the South Downs a couple of weeks ago, walking the South Downs Way, and we saw a pheasant outside the pheasant season, and I could tell that the people I was walking with were absolutely fascinated by my... Why are you laughing? They were absolutely fascinated by my theory that means it was a clever pheasant, because it survived the first round of shootings, which means it wouldn't be as stupid this year, and it would have learnt things like, crossing the road and stuff like that, or avoiding cars. I loved that.
I think you even made a pheasant sound. So, yes.
to imitate a pheasant.
Absolutely.
I love that question. I remember that question. And
I didn't even win a prize for it.
Well, let's not get carried away. It was a decent question, Vivian. I like this week's as well. I like the way your brain works. Let's find out. Can we have animals that are allergic to humans? 0345 6060 973. Thank you, Vivian. 12:46 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
48 is the time. We haven't had this question for a while. Is Keith real, asks Phoebe, or a foil for your humorous ramblings? I like that. My first band was called the Humorous Ramblings. I forgot it was Thursday, and I've had a supreme treat while popping out. It's nice to know we're in your ears, Phoebe. Keith is real. But in fact, if you listen very closely, sometimes when he whispers his ludicrously awful jokes into my ear in the desperate and forlorn hope that I might repeat one out loud one day, because I certainly never steal them from him without credit and pass them off as my own. Perish the thought! But sometimes, if I'm leaning in closely to the microphone, or if the volume is a little bit higher on my headphones, you might actually hear Keith's voice. Ditto Eleanor, although her register is a little higher than Keith's. So you can hear both voices. But anyway, that's a little bit niche. Speaking of niche, I have a follow-up to the most outrageous attempt I don't know what you'd call it, maligning a politician that I can remember seeing. The attempts this week by people who thought Boris Johnson was brilliant, Brexit was going to make everybody rich, austerity was necessary, Liz Truss was a financial genius, trying to attack Rachel Reeves over her childhood chess championships. Someone who's got more time on their hands than me has dug up this tweet from the beginning of last month by the bloke who started this story, someone called Alex Edmonds. And this is what he tweeted. Finally home after more than 8 hours of lectures and a conference keynote in my lunch break. My 3-year-old, colon quotes, do you need to work hard because the villain is taking our money? Me, which villain? My 3-year-old, Rachel. So, you know, if ever there was evidence of someone being both honest, completely unbiased and deeply reliable, it's this chap Alex Edmonds. It's funny that, because I got home last night and I said to my 3-year-old, I'm finally home after 3 hours of work and a tennis lesson. And my 3-year-old said, do you need to work? Because that person is talking absolute twaddle about Rachel Reeves and her chess championship history. And I said, which person? And my 3-year-old said, Alex Edmonds. Isn't that an extraordinary coincidence? And about as true as your story, pal. On your jog. Nancy's in Barnet. Nancy, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
This is the answer for Surrey, who lives in Hadley Wood, about her socks.
Thank you for the detail.
Okay, fine. Her socks, I don't know whether they're lined with terry cloth or they're just plain socks that are loose fitting. But either way, when she goes to sleep, for whatever reason, the blood circulation in her legs changes, and what's changing is the air level between the muscle, the tissue, and the nerves. And because the nerve endings are in her feet, if there's not enough air there, you're automatically going to get a cramp. And when you wear the socks, you warm up all that air so the blood circulation can go back to normal. And that's why her feet don't hurt anymore. So the socks
increase air circulation rather than reduce it?
Correct. Unless she's wearing the very special tight-fitting socks for those people who have low blood circulation.
She's not. She specifically said she was not wearing DVT socks.
Right. So as long as she's not wearing DVT socks or those socks that are helping the people who are diabetic, who actually have this in her foot, if she knew how much she was preventing by eliminating those cramps for her future, she's eliminating almost everything that is a cell-related disease, cellulitis, which if you get it in a major organ, you are a goner.
Good Lord, this has taken an unexpected turn. What are your qualifications, Nancy?
Oh, so I'm a medical. I was a medical researcher for over 20 years out of the UK.
Wow!
And I spent several 1, 2, 3, 4. I spent 5 terms with a specialist hematologist and a team of podiatric surgeons.
And that is how you know so much about socks.
Not only the socks, but about why people are born with foot deformation.
All right, seriously, it was quite a jolly question.
How the elderly people, especially those people who've suffered stroke or Parkinson's, are suffering in their circulation.
You are a legend. What an amazing contribution to the programme. And the way you say socks is a thing of beauty. It reminds me of one of my. It reminds me of one of my favourite jokes. That's great. I haven't told it yet. Would you like to hear it or not? No, you wouldn't, would you? No, not remotely. Yeah. Okay, so Bill Clinton turns up in Ireland during the peace process with his sacks. And they said, why have you brought your sacks? And he said, I'm here to support the cause. You don't get that. You're so polite. There was a popular beat combo at the time called The Cause. It's a pun. Yeah. But also the way, say socks for me one more time.
Socks.
Socks. Round of applause for Nancy.
Now, the other thing is, if any of your listeners need those loose-fitting socks, they only sell them in the M&S men's department.
Really, they're the best ones for the cramps.
They're the best ones that are loose-fitting.
She was just wearing Surrey and Hadley Wood was wearing any old socks.
Yeah, but you know what? It could be that she's wearing the travel socks that are lined loosely with the terry cloth.
She could be. She may get back in touch. She'll struggle to get through, frankly. But anyway, the travel socks or the normal socks, any old socks, but not the DVT socks.
No, those DVT socks, they will literally ruin her legs.
What? No, they won't. You can't say that. People need to wear them sometimes on planes and things. But anyway, we've covered enough sacks for one day. Thank you very much. Seek your own guidance on sacks. DVT sacks, normal sacks, travel sacks, or musical sacks, or tenor sacks, alto sacks, or bass sacks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Nancy, thank you. Adam's in Wembley. Adam, question or answer?
Hi, James. I'm laughing at the way you say socks.
It's not the way I say sax, it's the way Nancy says sax. I've got an earworm now. Carry on.
Sax. Say it all the time. I'm answering the question about body hair.
I just got déjà vu.
Yeah, I have answered this question before.
That was last week. We had a question about déjà vu. Did we answer it? I think we answered it. And now I'm not getting déjà vu. You have answered it before.
Yeah, but it wasn't last week. It was.
No, we had a question about déjà vu last week.
Maybe I wasn't listening last week.
Why not? You're never going to get in the top 0.5% of listeners, mate, if you skip a week. Although you wouldn't be listening on Spotify anyway. Go on. Quick, the body hair.
I do listen most weeks. And quick shout out to my friend Sab, who I know is listening.
Hey, Sab, stay safe, mate. Carry on.
The answer is twofold. I think the first, he was asking around, why do you not have hair where you want it to be? So typically men want hair on their head. And the reason that as you age, you don't have hair on your head is because of hormonal shifts, hormonal changes, hormonal imbalances. And you have hair follicles all over your body except for the palms of your hand and the soles of your feet. So as we age, testosterone your body becomes more sensitive to testosterone.
Yes.
And your body metabolizes testosterone to a enzyme called dihydrotestosterone, also known as DHT.
Yes.
And that your scalp becomes the most sensitive to that, which is why you become bald there.
And out it falls.
And then, exactly, and why you then have in the hair follicles in the rest of your body, i.e. your shoulders, your chest, your back, it grows there. You notice it more there.
Qualifications?
I'm a pharmacist and I'm also bald.
And you got very hairy ears? No.
No comment.
No, all right. Round of applause. Surprised you could hear me. I'm making myself laugh today. It's not healthy. Great work, Adam. John's in Manchester. John, question or answer?
It's an answer.
Carry on, John.
It's the answer to the white noise soothing babies. This is taught in medical school that it simulates to unborn babies the noise of the mum's blood pumping round.
I kind of said that. Keith said that as well.
Yeah, so that's what's taught, and that's similarly to lots of people, myself included. So rain noise, being played on an app, steaming kettle, those sort of things. That it simulates a comfort recall for babies.
Lovely.
That helps them soothe.
Qualifications?
I'm a practicing GP.
That'll do. Is that a qualification to answer this? Oh, yes, it is. Of course it is. Sorry.
General practice,
of course it is.
Medical school.
Well played. Have a medical school. Carry on. Round of applause.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Lovely stuff. Have we done it all this week? Have we got any? Oh, we never found an animal who's allergic to a human. And the piercings as well. Nicola's piercings. Maybe it's just you and your mum, Nicola. I did posit that at the time. It is, that's it. Crikey, is that the time already? I can tell it must be, because Sheila Fogarty's already here. It's coming up to 12:59. It's obvious who's won. I'm going to Martin and Maisie win the game. But remember that you can decide whether you want the old game, like the full-sized box version, or the new game, which isn't actually available yet, but will be by this time next week. So we should be able to work either of them out. One of them's worth more, or costs more, at mysteryhour.co.uk, but the other one is newer. So there is an interesting dimension to your decision-making process. That is it for me from today. All of the things I forgot to do yesterday, and indeed today, I promise you I will do tomorrow. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back and perhaps point out some of the things I've forgotten to do that I've now forgotten that I forgot to do. You can do that on the free Global Player app, or indeed the new LBC app, where you can stay up to date on the top stories and the opinions, and put your news categories in the order you want, and pause and rewind live radio, and listen to a range of podcasts, including James O'Brien Daily and Full Disclosure, and Mystery Hour, a separate Mystery Hour podcast as well. Be like Reese, be in the top 0.5% of listeners next year. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. Tom Sawbit will be with you at 4. But now, on LBC, it's time for Sheila Fogarty.
James O'Brien on LBC.